I think success is doing the thing that you are uniquely designed to do. I've been spending a lot of time trying to deconstruct the way I think about education. And one of the conclusions I've come to so far is that the evidence says that by far and away, the best education that you can have is, I really did learn the hard way that I got it wrong. Because if I keep hiring for skill, I'm completely overlooking the other side of the equation. So hard skills, soft skills. Actually, I'm absolutely sure of this one. You hire for soft skills. If we get to a base level of decent soft skills, we solve lots of the world's problems. But I think that we can do a lot more to create our own luck. And I think being too subservient to the systems that sit around us and thinking that the systems are just going to get us there is probably about the most naive thing that we can do.
Where are we? Where are we on the map? What's going on? What's getting in the way? And you expose yourself. Like, what's really going on? You unpack it all. What decisions am I avoiding? I think the really fundamental principle is you can make time to work on yourself and to create catalysts of change for yourself. The catalyst is you're sitting in a room and someone's like, you got a year left, mate. You know, like, so, right, okay, that's a wake up, that's a catalyst. I wonder, how do we create our own catalysts? And again, if I overlay this into the way I think about business, I think one of the best hacks I've got for how you create a great business.
If me and you get empowered tomorrow, we can change the education system. We help with a view to helping the mental. What's the first thing we do?
So I think probably we
I'm on a mission to help the world to see success differently. We're sharing the stories of our guests. I hope to inspire those that listen. This is the Different Hats podcast, produced by H2 Productions. I hope you can join us on this journey.
Need a new van? Why not pop down to Rivervale in Brighton? Explore our range of new and used vans, lovingly prepared and ready to work just as hard as you do. Rivervale, making motoring manageable.
Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm here with a good friend of mine, Mr. Neil Witten.
So nice to be here.
Mate, this is amazing. I love it when people like yourself and other friends, mutual friends we've had, and I go, I can't wait to get you on, just because it's going to be two mates just having a great conversation. Almost like I said, every time since we've met, every time we meet up, we just have an amazing conversation. Yeah. And the way your mind works, and just curious to get into that, and it'd be great to just record one today and then share it with other people, right? So, but look, we're going to kick off with, as we always do with this new series of the podcast, just life where you are today. Neil Witten, you all right, mate?
I'm all right. Do you know, I was because we were checking in about that earlier before we started, and I was thinking, if you say are you all right, mate? Am I going to say, yeah, I'm all right, mate? And just, that's it, and then we just move on, or like, because it's an invitation as well, isn't it? It's an invitation for like, what's going on? Where are you at? Where are you really at? And then it's like, I don't know if it feels like a different expectation to answer that question in a public domain and a private domain. But I try and do it in service of you. I feel like a lot of life exists on these two levels. Like, I'm so fortunate to be alive. No, at that level, I'm like 11 out of 10 optimistic and happy, and like, I'm in great health, and like, I've got a beautiful family, and like, I'm just like, life's great. And on another level, I was up at 5 o'clock this morning. I'm not an early riser, and my oldest son was just beyond dysregulated, and there's all sorts going on at home, and my wife at one point was in tears, and it's like that's part of life as well. That's real, and it's tough. It's really tough. So I think that's probably the bit that you're looking for in the answer.
Mate, thank you for sharing. You're absolutely right. I think like it's really weird. Like we had a couple of focus groups around "You're Right, Mate" and what the campaign is going to be, the national campaign, when we get around to that, and naturally some people going, oh, it's just such a flippant comment that everyone does naturally go, yeah, I'm fine, and that's what. And I get what come out of the focus groups we did, and for me is actually trying to put meaning into and the fact that it's such a flippant phrase, and the fact that it's got no meaning, that can we create something where we're putting meaning into that phrase? So when someone says you're all right, mate, you go, it does stop you. In fact, you go, they're actually asking now, I really am, as opposed to me just warranting an answer to start.
So, yeah, you're trying to design it in a way where if the answer that comes back is, yeah, I'm all right, that you push back a bit. Like there's supposed to be a little bit of toing and throwing with it.
Yeah. And there's nothing like that. There's the other side, I guess you go, there's a couple of things with it. One, that maybe people are right, and that's cool. Right, great. You know what? I'm really good at the minute. Things are okay. I'm doing all right. This is happening. Brilliant. Okay, that's a great thing. That's good as well. The other flip side to it is we're going, what does actually the other layers that we can do that actually you're all right, mate, isn't just potentially going, I'm just checking in. Is it you're all right, mate, is that I'm going to send a message to someone and tell them how much I love them, or how grateful I am that they're in my life. And that has got that meaning to it as well. So it's not, because sometimes people are not ready, especially I guess if you're struggling and you're not in a good place with things, that sometimes you're not ready to do that. But actually, if I just go, mate, I'm thinking of you today and I really care about you, love you, like, just hope it all's well, like, maybe that lands, and that's what you need to hear. And I am loved and cared for. But no, that's the,
Something else that just came up for me is when we were talking before, we were talking about parenting and like the challenges of all the moving parts and how you get it right, and yourself as well. And one of the things I notice, and it transcends parenting into every part of life, is like the questions we ask, how we engage, how we listen, like that, the communication and developing it and getting better and honing it. And are you all right, mate, is deliberately a closed question versus what you're struggling with at the moment. But I wonder what the invitation is, and I wonder, you know, maybe the point is to start with something that's quite comfortable, and then to deliberately open up the questioning if it feels appropriate to open up, because even the people that are genuinely answering, I'm great, things are can I swear?
Yeah.
Things are fucking amazing. You know, like this is good, like everything's cool, like this just happened, that happened. That's true, and there's always we're multidimensional, so there's lots of other truths, and the check-in is like, what's actually going on? We're not very good at that, are we? We're not very good at like what's actually going on. Tend to skip over it. It's very British culture.
Yeah, I wonder, and it is that. I think that's British culture. Do you think it's obviously? Do you think there's more so with men as well? Women just seem to be better at that.
Yeah, I don't know if this is overthinking it, but I think women have got like a long plotted history of being in community and being quite exposing, because it's part of like the natural cycle of being a woman, especially if you're thinking about the direction of like giving birth and nurturing and all that kind of stuff. So I think that they have developed a whole bunch of skills that come much more naturally. Like even like when I was at school and we did the sex education stuff, they got all the girls went off into one room, all the boys went into another room, and all the girls were talking about their periods and all the boys were talking about how to put a condom on or whatever it was. And now I think, why were we not all in the same room, right? But if you imagine, what does it feel like to be a girl in that context? Because for us it was all just jokey and bands, wasn't it? But for a woman, or for a young woman at that point, that would have been like, that's really intimate, and it's really intimate with that group of people that are around you. And I think that it probably starts earlier than that for women. I think there are kind of like these moments in life. I saw my wife, you know, you've been through it as well, get pregnant, give birth, like that's hugely exposing. You can't really hide that stuff. And it, you know, because it's very physically changing you, and it's changing all sorts of aspects of you, and it's very uncomfortable. Like, so I think you kind of have to go through that with other people. Whereas for men, I don't think we have the same moments in life. I don't think it happens in the same way. I think they come about, but I just don't think they happen in quite as clear a way.
That's such a brilliant way of looking at it, because I know you're absolutely
Thanks,
right.
mate. I'll take that.
Yeah, I know, but honestly, like, I just thinking about it out loud, like, you're right. Like, maybe does that bond from women start at that age, because they will go like, it's obviously a part of growing up, and they will share that. Oh, I had my period, and they share that with her. And like you said, that's a really
well, and also, when they're sharing it, they're in it together, aren't they?
Yeah,
because it's like you've got to share what's going on, and you've got to share in the support with each other. So I think there's this biological change that happens, and I think those biological changes have seasons. And for a woman, there are multiple seasons throughout their lives. And I think what those seasons do is they further develop their ability to communicate at the level that we're talking about, with a degree of intimacy and vulnerability and all that good stuff. I think it's just much more innate. And I think that it's like typically heavily practiced and sort of enforced. And I think for men, we've got to kind of make it up as we go along. I really do. I don't think that there are the equivalent moments. I think we've found, or some of us have found, a groove in sports, for example, and all sorts of other domains. And I think probably becoming a dad is a moment where there's a bit more of a reason. But beyond that, it doesn't exist in the same way.
Yeah, because it's even like, because there's all the stigmas and the vulnerability and the embarrassment around, like I don't know, even you go to young lads and even talking about sex and stuff like that, it's a bravado thing as opposed to...
Exactly. It's not an exposing thing.
I'm never going
to
sit there and go to you like at 13 or, oh, mate, I'm just really I don't have a clue what I'm doing about sex. Like, what? You don't have that conversation, right? I'm not going to be vulnerable with you because you're going to take the piss out of me, or that, there's just those layers where automatically, like, changes happen to women or young girls, and they talk about it and go, oh, I'm going through this, and like, I started mine as well, and that's where we're at. Blokes are like, you're right from that is the point where maybe those things are innate in us, that we just go the bents, and that's how we process stuff. And we even talked like Matt, who my previous guest, who obviously the studio is and who films this, like he was saying that, like, his go-to is comedy. When someone putting him makes him feel vulnerable, or whatever, his go-to will be comedy, even through the conversation me and him had. And you're like, how do we change that, like, from that young age? Like, how do we get into kids at that young age to...
I'm thinking on my feet here, but actually I think one thing that would make a material difference is, I don't know if they do this, but when they do that sex education piece, put them all in one and talk openly, because then maybe both sides would spread a bit more. We learn from the women, and the women learn from us a little bit, and it just becomes a bit more common ground through. And also we understand each other's lived experiences better than we would do. Maybe that's happened. I mean, the younger generation seem to be like they're
better.
Yeah, there's definitely like a marked improvement, isn't there, in this space?
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that as well, because one of the other things that come out of the focus group for the URMA was, like, there's some amazing men's mental health campaigns at the minute, especially through the football club. I was involved with the Brighton Hove Albion one, and obviously Spurs have just done an amazing one. That whole Together Against Suicide campaign, amazing. But it's focused around football, so it's very male dominated, of course, and that's the target audience, etc., etc. So I get it. What came out of the focus group was actually, how do we engage women in this
100%.
conversation?
Yeah, because men can't be okay if women don't play a supporting role in helping men to be okay, and vice versa as well.
Yeah. And because of what a few people had said was actually, like, I really feel uncomfortable talking to my other mates about it, but I would go to a woman and speak about my feelings because they hold that space for me a bit better. So actually, if we're putting a campaign together or we're doing something, surely it's got to then involve women. I think maybe does that start at a really young age where we're in the same room and they're doing they're having those conversations, and I think that might, it's got to be, it's
Do
an
you
interesting
have female friends that you talk to? Like, proper friends?
Yeah.
Do you find it easier almost to get into the good stuff more easily with them?
Maybe. I think I think what's changed for me over the last few years is that I've met people, I guess, like you, like I'd say Joel Lawton, like John Barnes,
Yeah.
like people we know, like who I feel like I could like go quite deep, quite quick. Like, do you know what I mean? Like you've got that. Like, I feel like because of the nature of this, because of my natural curiosity, because of how my mind is, I can be like that a little bit more. But it's different. Like my pals from Essex, maybe not as easy to fall back in to that. So I feel like I'm surrounding myself with people now who I can have those conversations with, blokes as well as women. So I think I've got. I think you're right. I think maybe probably for other men. I don't know. What's your take?
I think a part of the reason I was out with some old school friends last night, and there were a few girls who were like really good mates, and I feel like it's always been easier. Not that it's similar to all the things that you said. It's comparatively easy for a lot of men in my world like yourself, compared to other guys. I'd say on the whole that where I've got a trusting relationship with a woman, it's just easier. And again, I wonder if that supports this argument of like they're just more attuned. They're just like got better at it over time.
Because them skills, isn't it? Like for me, I think one of the things we're doing with the men's programme, the things that we're trying to teach in schools with the emotional literacy, so much of it is to do for me with active listening. Like we've done a couple of exercises in that men's programme where guys sit back to back, you share something, they listen, and then you share into the group what you heard them say. So you've really got to listen, because I don't think often men necessarily do that as well. We just not maybe great listeners. And again, like you do a podcast, it forces you sometimes to listen. Well, we've got a word in this conversation. You really want to listen because you want to respond to what you're saying, as opposed to waiting for you to finish because I'm going to ask another question or I've got to, do you know what I mean? So I think there's skills that maybe if we could teach those skills again, it's what we're trying to teach again back at that school age, that we're giving them like that toolkit that they've got to go into the world to be able to go, if I ask someone if they're right, I'm going to sit and listen to them and really listen. I think there's just different. Like I said, maybe it is just naturally women have got, or young girls develop them skills younger naturally because of their environments, and boys just need to, because whatever way we look at it, we're in crisis, right? Mental health crisis. And when you look at and then even with young boys and stuff coming through, and suicide rates and all of them things that we talk, I'm trying to change, but that's got to be where it starts.
I've got to call out the massive generalisation that we've stumbled into around gender and how like dangerous a topic that is. But I'm also going to back that statement up with like, I'm quite comfortable saying boys, girls, because I see the difference, and I respect the difference, and I think it's a great thing. But I don't want to overlook the fact that we are going in a really pointed way and genderising this, and
100%. And look, for me personally, as you know, with Master, like of course, with the gender fluidity that we've got in there, we are generalising one over here and one over here, and I think like the gender scale is huge, right? I
think the interesting thing to bring that point back to is where we were saying about like what is the actual typical lived experience, and we know what it's like for us. Like we can talk about that as men because we're definitely we're definitely identifying and experiencing that. For women, those biological changes, on the whole, are part of what it is to experience being a woman. And therefore what comes with that and all the stuff that when we're unpacking it, it's like, well, it might not come with it to the same extent for everybody, but there is definitely a certain amount that comes with it that we don't experience just because we don't go through those same phases. That's the point that I think, we shouldn't overlook that.
I'm with you. Hey, well, look, I want to let's jump in with the next big question, right? Which everyone gets asked, and you know what's coming. So what? But I'm keen with you. There's a couple of things, but firstly, just success. What does it mean to you? I say success. How do you define it? What is it?
I can't remember if you'll remember this, but we, I think we were on a panel or something together, and we got into this a little bit. And I remember and it was an off the cuff thing because in that moment I'd remembered that I'd written something about it a long time ago, and I don't know if you do this, but I don't write that often. I mean, I write, but it's not kind of a deliberate practice. I don't see myself as a writer particularly, but sometimes when I've got thoughts and ideas that I think would be useful for other people or for myself to come back to, then I just want to put them out in a public domain. And so sometimes I'll write stuff, right? And in that moment, I remembered that I'd written something about it. And I think what I tried to do in that moment was give you a version of it. And then afterwards, it prompted me to go back and reread it, which was actually really helpful. So like, thank you for prompting me to go reread it. So I've got a better idea of what I said. And actually, I do think that because I sat with it, and I was trying to remember why did I even write it. And I think what was going on, I will answer the question instantly, but what was going on was I think I was at a phase in life where it felt like there was a lot of talk of success. Like even from my parents, we touched on your parents earlier, and I think we've probably got a similar experience here. Like, we're fortunate to have great parents who have been very supportive of us, like the biggest cheerleaders and all that sort of stuff. But my parents are sickly in like how proud they are of me, which on one hand I love, on one hand it's like, come on, dumb it down a bit. So I think probably what was going on when I thought about writing that article was I was at a point in life, for whatever reason, where I was hearing the word success a lot. And it always felt a bit uncomfortable, not always directed at me, but just around me, right? And I think probably it provoked me to really inquire about like what was it I was feeling and why did it feel uncomfortable, which led me to this article. And what I wrote is something along the lines of like, in order for me to understand what success is and why I'm feeling uncomfortable about this, let's like deconstruct the whole thing. Let's start with what does the dictionary say success is? And the dictionary says something along the lines of, it's not achievement, it's an accomplishment. That's the word it uses, an accomplishment of a purpose or an aim, right? So dictionary definition of success is something like that, but it's definitely the word accomplishment, which I think is important, and purpose and aim, right?
And also under that is the attainment of fame, wealth, and social status, which is part of the...
So I think that, so there's an interesting thing that happens in all language, and there's a name that's given to this around semantic change or semantic shift or something. And the idea is that we come up with words like success, we give them a clear definition, and then culture adapts them. And actually, it's part of what makes language really interesting, because the meaning of words evolve over time with culture. And so I'm there, like thinking about this thing, and then I've eventually written this article, starting with that dictionary definition of like accomplishment of purpose or aim. And I'm like, okay, for like a few things that are really interesting to me about that. Firstly, the word accomplishment, it doesn't say achievement, it says accomplishment. And accomplishment for me is like, if you get accomplished at being able to play an instrument, you're very seasoned, you're very comfortable, you're good, you're competent, you're enjoying it. You haven't hit a pinnacle necessarily, but you've reached a level. And then purpose and aim, right? Then at the time when I'm thinking about this, I think one of the biggest inquiries, and I know it's where you came from with your thinking on this, is like, but why is it the case that in so many contexts we default to success meaning it's about monetary, like it's about money, right? It's about how much money you've got. And I unpack this a bit as well, and I think the reason for it, and I think it's part of the cultural shift, is that there's this thing called hidden defaults, and it's like this. It's kind of in part of kind of cognitive biases, and the idea is that it's a shortcut that human beings take, where if we can just use a default for something, and it's convenient to do so, we'll just do it because it's kind of lazy and it's not important. There's an example in the article, but I'll save it for if you want to read it another time. But I think that what has happened there's been a cultural shift, and the cultural shift is that there is a hidden default in our behaviour, which is something called financial maximisation. And the idea is that the best decision is the one that maximises the financial outcome. And that's permeated culture, I think. And I think because it's permeated culture, if you take it back to success, well, therefore, purpose and aim is financial maximisation. So we just put those two things together as if they're one thing, and they're not the same thing. So then if you unpack it further and you go, all right, so I don't want purpose to be the hidden default. I want purpose to be something else. So what's the dictionary definition of purpose? And the dictionary definition of purpose is something along the lines of, it's essentially like innate motivation. It doesn't use those words, but that's I think that's a reasonable interpretation of it. It's like when you are doing the thing that you are uniquely designed to do. That's basically like the definition of purpose. So I think that's where we've gone awry. I think so. Going all the way back up to answer the question of like, what do I actually think success is? I think success is doing the thing that you are uniquely designed to do, doing it proudly, getting a load back from it, and feeling like you're giving as much as you're taking, and just feeling great about like showing up. I think that's what it is. And I think actually, ironically, the dictionary definition, like when you really unpack it, I think that's really what it says. I just think we've gone off course because of this whole thing about financial maximization.
Wow. Yeah. And I guess for me that like you said, that's society's influence on that, right? That's society's influence. Like you said, we strip it right back to the start. Like maybe that was the meaning behind the whole thing, was that what you just described, as opposed to the finance. Like, and maybe it'd be interesting to know when the attainment of fame, wealth, and social status was added into that, right?
For
like
sure.
when does that come in? Like that wouldn't have been generations ago, would it? Like that's been a later version, and that has been implemented in, because that's
that's probably, I think when they rewrite the dictionary, I think they do tend to try and make it relevant to how the semantic shift has evolved, because that's part of how language works again, right? So it's really interesting, isn't it? Because you're right, it means that something happened at a cultural level and it shifted the definition, and now we've accepted the new definition, but it means that we've sort of lost sight of what the original definition was. And actually, the original definition was probably the more healthy thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you've just described it, like well, if that's what it means to be successful, then so just go through as you just described it again.
So I think it's something along the lines of like living your life, doing the thing that you're uniquely designed to do, and getting all the things you need from it, and giving all the things you need from it. So I don't think you can leave that last bit out, because I think you know, it's not the case that you're going to wake up every day and have the best day. Like stuff's going to be hard, but you're going to be pointed in a direction where it's absolutely playing to what drives you innately.
See, there's so much, like for me, like the thing that you're uniquely designed to do, like. Again, I think that the correlation you've identified between that and purpose, right? Like, because how many people I've sat opposite in that, and you know how many people you'd have spoke to, and that is, you know, Olympic champions, multi-millionaires, all them people who have gone, but that's not the thing. Like you have to go through. We've gone through this journey, and then you go, yeah, but that's not the thing. I've climbed this ladder, but it's against the wrong wall. That's not the thing. So it's then back to, then you start questioning, and you get to that point. Is it that you've had to achieve that to then recognise it? Like I think, for me, through exploration, I've found that, as opposed to getting to the point and then looking back and realising, but you find that purpose. But it's so, like, if we, again, back to the next generation and them younger kids, imagine if it's that finding the thing that you're uniquely designed to do that lights you up. But on the back of that, you're able to gain the things that you want. So even if you went to Maslow's hierarchy needs, you get those things. The thing you're uniquely designed to do gives you those. But at the same time, in service of others, you give back as well. You will feel an alignment with values, purpose. There's something in that.
If you go to Maslow's hierarchy needs and you go up the pyramid, you look at kind of shelter and community and all that stuff, I actually think that there is a real trap in modern culture where actually it's pretty hard for a lot of people to really feel free of a lot of that stuff. And there's lots of reasons for that, and we could end up getting really political about talking about it. But So I think there is a fair and genuine reason why that financial maximization thing comes back into focus, because it's easier to use that as an alternative comfort blanket almost when you are grappling with Maslow's hierarchy of needs at a lower level, right? But then I think where it gets quite interesting is I think you're right that, ultimately I think we're all designed to try and get to the top and to get towards self-actualization. And the irony is that you probably don't need most of, or anywhere near as much of the stuff going up the ladder in order to then actually turn the camera on yourself and really start asking some of the hard questions. But I think that, again, because of the complexity of the systems that we exist in and how we evolve, when we get anywhere near self-actualization, I don't think that we're very good at being able to even listen. I mean, I wasn't. I still think that I really struggle with it. I think most of us do. What do I really need? What like, so if going back to the definition of success, what I'm uniquely designed to do, what am I uniquely designed to do? Like, and I think that there's an interesting thought process around where Maslow's hierarchy of needs maybe comes unstuck is like, it talks about the thinking part, but not the doing part. So like the idea is self-actualization, but how do you actually get to self-actualization? I don't think you get there by thinking, because I don't think you can think your way out of that. I think you get there by doing. And again, culture doesn't promote this, because culture wants to box us in and wants us to be a thing. And you've done a great job of this over time, to become Sam, to become Neil. It's like, I think that's probably the answer. But then you got to go, well, who is Neil? Well, you just got to go try loads of stuff and go like, oh, I like a bit of that. This seems to work for me. I seem to do a good job at that thing. Like it's a kind of like it's like a constellation of stars, isn't it? Like we've all got a unique pattern, and we need to understand that pattern, like get it clear, and then like dial it in.
Have you found your unique pattern?
I think I'm finding it.
What you asked that question, and I about like when we start to look inward and we ask those quite big questions: who is Neil? Who am I? Right? Is a lot of that to do with values, behaviours? When you start to look and ask those questions, is that what we're searching for? Like, who am I? Like, not what do I do, or am I going to be? Who am I going to be, or what? But the type of person I'm going to be. So is that what we're searching for when we sit in the silence sometimes and we look inward? Is that what we're searching for? Values or behaviours of who we are?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because maybe looking at it a slightly different way, it's an inquiry towards what is innate. So again, we've talked about this before, but if you've got kids, you have the first one and then you expect the second one to be pretty much the same, but maybe look a bit different. And in my experience, and I know your experience, and everybody else that I talk to, we sort of laugh about, because it's ridiculous. I mean, like, when these kids are born, they have this innate quality that is them. And I really do believe this. I think they're born, and you see it in their facial expressions, you see it in the way that every aspect about the way they respond to the world. And then as you start to see them growing up, and what their tendencies are and how they go through those tendencies, it just absolutely plays back to that innate quality. And so, of course, there is nurture. Of course, there's all learned behaviours and systems and all that complicated stuff. But there is something magical there. There's a thing there. And we give it a name because it's convenient. So we call it Sam Thomas or Neil Witten. But beyond that, I don't think that we do a very good job of really understanding what is that thing? What is it about? So I think you're right. I think, personal values, personal mission. I think job titles, we should ban them. But I think like kind of there's a trend over the last 10 years or so that I quite like, and it's normally in the domain of like CEOs and stuff, where they'll write the handbook for the CEO of Sam. Have you come across this?
No.
Oh yeah, it's like this has become, I think it came from Silicon Valley, but it's become a bit more mainstream now. And the idea is, it's like, this isn't about how you work with this company, it's how you work with me. So I think in this kind of way. My Myers-Briggs profile looks like this. If you, I love to go through a process of ideating in this sort of way, in this sort of environment. don't tell me I'm wrong for these and it's almost like a manual for the CEO, and it sort of sounds a bit tardy, doesn't it, when you think, oh, it's a bit self-aggrandizing, like it's like a bit like, oh, like you get a manual, do you? But in a way, we should probably all have a manual, shouldn't we? We should all, or certainly we should be kind of building the manual for ourselves. And then maybe, actually, I did it as a favour for a guy I worked with actually recently. It was a bit of a joke, but it was also, there was some depth to it, where I had a first stab at writing the outline of his manual for him. Just because I kind of thought it was related to some stuff we were talking about. I just thought it'd be useful. And I think it was actually I think it was useful for me to do it as somebody that could see him, at a deeper level. But also I think it was really useful for him to then feel like, oh, okay, that's who I am. And then to add his layer onto the top of it.
Wow. I'm really interested in that manual thing, like in relation to when I guess one of my questions is that again, looking inward and asking these questions, values, whatever it is, or creating this manual of who is this something that we have to wait until we're older? Is this something that we can get kids? This is my big thing, because I'm like, these big questions, we wait until we're going through a midlife crisis or whatever, and then we go, oh, fuck, I'm going to ask myself these questions.
Mate, it's such a good point, right? So, we touched on it briefly earlier. So my oldest son, Ben, diagnosed with ADHD, all sorts of parts of that are incredible. In so many different ways, like his ability to feel is like beyond what I had imagined, so there's a whole host of super skills. There's a whole host of challenges. I think we're all trying to figure it out, him and us, and the system. Like it's a melting pot. But one of the really interesting things that I've come across through navigating that is that there is a pathway for, kids that are less able to cope with mainstream, let's kind of say it like that, where they will be given essentially like a dumbed down version of the manual that we're talking about. In order for Ben to learn well, these are the things, like one of the things that he has as an intervention is he needs to kind of move, he needs to fidget around to think. So he's like fidget spinners, all that sort of stuff. I think other kids are just messing about with them, but there is something that activates his brain in a different way to maybe other kids. And so the school have been great, and they he can have these fidget spinners in class, and as long as it's not disruptive and he's doing it for his own benefit, it's totally cool. And I think more and more there is a document attached to that so that it can travel the different classes and the different environments and I think the idea is that they develop it to suit the individual. So it's really interesting, because I think at a very kind of basic level, and probably on the edges, some of these ideas are probably finding their way in. But you're absolutely right. I think we wait way too late, because we're still figuring it out, and it's taken us 40 plus years to figure it out, and we're still trying to figure it out. So if you embedded some of these ideas at a very young age, and you just started to try and put words to those innate qualities, and you started to encourage the child to own and to celebrate those unique qualities, then it would be very normalized, and you could build on that as you go, and then it could be a work in progress forever.
Because then even like you said, and some people, like with the whole labels side of things, some people say, I don't want to be labelled, and you put in a box, right? And some people, it helps them to be like, well, I understand that. So I'm wondering whether, again, there's a spin on that you go, the label side of things becomes part of my manual. So my manual is, I'm neurodiverse. And I think that, again, there's stigmas that are attached to it, right? So as soon as the neurodiversity, I mean, obviously it's talked about a lot more now, but there's still stigmas attached to neurodiversity, right? So, and because this is my frustration, I guess, with it, because as Lucy, like my daughter, she hasn't been diagnosed yet, but we are having her assessed, and she definitely, her brain works in a different way. Where we've got twins, right? So they're the same age, they're in the same school. So the difference between them is so vast. They've been brought up in the same environment at the same time, and yet they learn in completely different ways. And whether there's neurodiversity or not, her brain just works in a different way to how Sienna's does. So you go, now, I guess it's recognising again that uniqueness, but the school system doesn't allow for that uniqueness, does it?
Yeah.
That's where the problem for me lies a lot with the curriculum. It doesn't necessarily allow for that uniqueness.
Yeah. What you made me think then is like, I mean, we might get on to education at some point in the conversation, but I've been spending a lot of time trying to deconstruct the way I think about education. And one of the conclusions I've come to so far is that the evidence says that by far and away the best education that you can have is one-to-one, like really personalised, right? Essentially, really personalised education. And obviously, mainstream education is quite a way away from one-to-one. It's about coping as opposed to one-to-one. What we're describing around these, like that kind of manual, that kind of thing, that might be a way of being able to get that much closer to one-to-one, but you're coming at it from a completely different way. Do you know what I mean? Because like, imagine if we have our manuals and it's like, well, it just so happens that you and I, our learning style is more active. And then there's another learning style where it's much calmer, it's much quieter. Okay, well, maybe just one thing that we could do is group us up and then apply a slightly different learning principle than those kids. And I think you could start to be quite clever about spotting, because, and again, sort of another bit that comes up is where you were talking about the labels. And I think, the labels can be really good and bad. But if you take some of the neurodiversity things like ADHD, autism, like they're quite blunt labels today, I think, because there's a spectrum, and I think we all exist somewhere on all of these spectrums. And so the problem with the labels is that they just become quite blunt. They're like, oh, you are that thing, but you're not that thing. You're a bit of that, a bit of this, a bit of all of it. And I think what we're doing by applying that label is just trying to give you, trying to help put you in a bucket, but. The downside of it is we lock you in a bucket, and by locking you in that bucket, we haven't been able to kind of pull out the other unique bits that actually and again they might play when you do it in the round. That's the innate, that's the quality, that's the beauty, that's the thing that activates you. Is that making sense?
Yeah, it really does. And it's just, I guess it's just how do we? And it's hard. Listen, I love. Obviously, we're talking about education, but I always cover everything I say with. I think teachers are superheroes. Right? I think they're amazing. Like, I just feel, for me, I feel that the pressure that they're put under by the curriculum that's where the archaic thing is. It's not that the teachers are not willing to want to change things or want to learn, but you've got to do it this way, and that's how you do it. So it doesn't allow for that uniqueness. It doesn't allow for us to find the uniqueness in individuals. I wonder whether you're right. Like, and again, back to I love the idea of the manual, like, and how we.
Can I have it, mate?
Mate, I tell you, we're going to take that. That's Paul invited the Yam program. But I love the idea of that, and how that can. Like, I wonder if it is part like I don't know. We start to develop a story of someone's life.
There's a good validation point that you remind me of. I might get a bit of this wrong, but there's it's one of the biggest hedge funds in the world. I can't think of the name, Blackwater or something. Like if anyone's listening and they know that space, they'll know exactly who it is, because it's like one of the biggest ones. And the guy that has run that for like 50 years or whatever, apparently one of the things that he did very differently to everybody else that he claims was probably part of the hidden success of what they've achieved is they created these, he describes them as like top trump cards for every person that works in there, like every employee. And the top trump card is a kind of, again, a dumbed down version of the manual. It's like, how do you get the best out of Sam? When's the best time to talk to him? Like what kind of things is he, where is he exceptional and where will he struggle? And it's like, and the way that, and they actually hire according to these top trump cards as well. So they'll look at, like, so if you think about diversity of thinking as the superpower, they're being quite programmatic about how they achieve that, because they're looking at these top trump cards and they're going, okay, well, this pod of people that we need to work on that thing, we need 6 or 7 of them. And at the moment we're over indexed on, there's too, like, for want of a simplification, there's too much entrepreneurial thinking there, and we need some very sort of red-coloured people that are much more into the detail and less about like the big hairy ideas. And so they'll use these top trump cards as a way of being able to get that diversity of thinking in a really systematic way. And then what they do is like everybody really embodies these top trump cards. Like it's part of the culture of this hedge fund, where like, you know, you don't shy away from it. If you're in a meeting, everybody knows like that. This is how you introduce yourself. This is who I am, and you're proud of it as well. Because it's like it's you like claiming that identity, that but the core, you know, the bit that you're just innately good at. Again, that like, so I think there's some really interesting evidence there from a completely different domain that like some of the stuff we're talking about makes a lot of sense.
Because again, like I think there's something there. And I was talking to someone the other day around like trying to find your zone of genius.
Yeah.
They mentioned it, right? So, like, we was talking about, as we're building stuff at the moment, I'm trying to, you know, maybe get a team together to really deliver what we're looking at delivering. Again, actually, maybe I know I'm an ideas person. I'm a visionary, whatever people want to, whether that label is or what you ever want to say. But that's where my maybe zone is. I'll come up with an idea, how to implement it, maybe not great. But there's people that are really great at that side of it, and it's just fun. And then I bring that, come full circle, going back to schools. And we've identified in this program we've been running recently, you're asking kids to some of these questions around like where they see themselves, like maybe on a scale of like how they are completely themselves on a daily basis or whatever. And some of them put them really low, put themselves there, and I can't speak to them, and they're like, I'm just a bit dumb, like don't feel confident. So why don't you feel confident? Because I'm a bit thick. Why are you thick? Like, well, maths, I just sit in maths, just don't get it. You know, I'm there like this, like, but I'm going like, oh. And then you tap into something. You go, what do you like doing? I really love doing this. Oh, great. Yeah. And their face lights up, and they're really into it. And you're, okay, great. You know what? And just trying to identify with this little group. They're 10 years old, just trying to identify. Look, maybe that's your zone of genius, and you're finding that thing that lights you up. That you can tell how passionate you are about it. And you really love it, don't you? You're really good at it. And that's your zone of genius. Like, just because your zone of genius might not be over here, you're not thick. You know what I mean? But that for me is the underlying problem, where the system or the curriculum we've got in place, that's what it leaves kids with. They come out, some of them geniuses, right? And especially then when you flip it onto the neurodiversity side of things, like to give them that message, they might come out and feel less than, right?
I mean, you spark so many threads. I spend a lot of time these days in all sorts of different environments, different businesses where we're talking about people and hiring and all this sort of stuff. So it's like a big feature of my world. And honestly, I've learnt this the hard way. I really have. I've got the T-shirt on this one, that I used to hire for skill, right? So back in my earlier days of like hiring very techie people, it was actually pretty easy to like score you on skill. Like I kind of, you know, I know enough about what I need you to do, and you know what good looks like, and I could and we did, and we set people tests, and then there would be a series of tests, and I think we got very good, and I think the world got very good at being able to test us, and this overlaid back into in the world of academia and education, test us on skills. Cool. I really did learn the hard way that I got it wrong, because if I keep hiring for skill, I'm completely overlooking the other side of the equation. So hard skills, soft skills. Actually, I'm absolutely sure of this one. You hire for soft skills. Soft skills first, hard skills second, which feels really, really counterintuitive in most domains. But I'm almost certain it's the right answer. And actually, it's really hard to do, because how do you validate soft skills? Like, especially within an interview process, like within the sort of process that we tend to go through. How do you get into soft skills? How do you identify what the soft skills you need, and how do you identify what good and bad looks like? And then how do you do the bit attached to hard skills? But the answer, I'm sure of it, the answer is you hire for the right soft skills and the right cultural fit. You validate that enough of the propensity for the hard skills are either there or thereabouts. And then you just get really good at developing that side, because you can develop that side. If people are motivated and they're, you know, intrinsically wired in the right direction, it's like that stuff's going to come really easily. And actually the kind of lie that we all tell ourselves is you go into any new company, and just because you've got 10 years worth of experience, it doesn't really mean very much, because you go into this company, we'll do it differently. It looks like this here. So you've got to learn it all anyway. And actually, like, learning the hard skills, that's the easy bit. It's the soft skills.
Can we teach the soft skills? Or is that part of our unique makeup that we're talking about?
I don't think we do a very good job of teaching the soft skills at the moment in any sort of part of the kind of typical education system. I think it definitely happens. I think there is some development in that direction, but yeah, I don't think that we do a job of trying to teach it.
But you believe we can? There's ways of teaching soft skills.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Well, I think maybe more. I think it's just something like anything. I think we can all improve at everything.
Yeah.
You know, so. I think we are innately designed for certain things, which mean that when we do them, they're just going to come much more easily to us, which means that when we put time and energy into it, we are going to improve and get better at it quicker than somebody else. If we are not innately designed to do something well, it doesn't mean that you can't get good at it. It's just much harder to get good at it. And it might not be the best way of developing you, but I think on the soft skill side of things, I think we're letting a lot of people, I think we're letting ourselves down, actually, all of us, because I think if we get to a base level of decent soft skills, we solve lots of the world's problems by doing it. So it does feel really important, doesn't it? And if you believe what I was saying about hiring and then how that transfers into business and like how you get the economic cycle working, I think we're massively underplaying the importance of soft skills in that equation because, like I said, I'm pretty sure that you've got to hire for soft skills. So what I'm saying is actually the academic outcomes, they don't really matter as much as we think they do. I think we're told a story that, and I think it probably did used to matter for different reasons, but we're at a point now where I don't think people are really hiring because you've got that degree or you've got that qualification. It's not to say that stuff doesn't matter somewhere, right? So I don't want to be ridiculously radical on what it is I'm describing here, but I think that the thing that matters more is who you are and what you're about, and that bit of energy and that sparkle. And also, and that sparkle isn't there, you can't fake it. It's there because you've developed the soft skills that sit around you. And I think if that's there, I think actually that's the thing that businesses are hiring for more and more. And I actually think it's going to become more and more important as the machines start to take over. That unique you. Well, there's only one of you. Yeah. There's loads of robots, but there's only one Sam. So what is it that Sam can do that's really, really great and really beautiful? Great, we'll have a bit of that, but we just want you doing that bit, please.
I remember asking that question. I asked a head teacher of Hurst College, Dominic Mott. I said to him, why are we not focusing in the education system? Why are we not focusing on emotional literacy and developing those skills, and it's purely on it? And he said, his answer was that it's tangible to measure, and that's what you've alluded to. Right, it's hard to measure soft skills, hard to measure those things, but doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. Doesn't mean that we can't teach it.
And I wonder whether we've got something else wrong there in the round as well, because we're trying to. It's like a scoring system. Like, why are we doing a scoring system?
Yeah, why measure it?
What? Yeah. Like, I don't really see the point of the scoring system, because we know that the scoring system on the whole, in the way we do it, is just kind of arbitrary. It's like, it's not really about did you put all the work in? Do you fully understand this? And even that today is not that relevant, because there's a completely different set of skills around, can you get to the right... My mate Jake, right? I hope Jake listens to this. My mate Jake, I was at uni with him, and he won't, like, everybody else did his work for him, right? We all propped him up. And he came out with a decent degree, and since then he's gone on to be. I mean, the job titles are ridiculous. Like, he's head of growth at Canva or something. Like he was lead something or other at Twitter and Deliveroo before that. Like, he's had an incredible career, this guy, and he's a great guy. But his unique skill and capability is not on the academic ability, not getting to the answers himself. It's like he's very, very good at engaging other people and bringing them with him and then helping to get to the right answer. And the world has proven that, because that's where he's landed. He hasn't landed on that because of the qualifications, because I know how he got there, and he knows how he got those qualifications, and I don't think he'd hide it, frankly, either. That's part of his nature. It's like he'd say this in the same way I'd saying it, because he's kind of owning what it is that makes him great.
because even then, I love that because there's something in it. But so for example, I guess like, I'm not saying like, and I keep bringing it back to education only because it's something I'm obviously passionate about. I know we've spoke about it offline before, but you look at like, so for example, I understand there's some foundations and fundamentals that maybe we need to teach within the curriculum. But for example, maths then. So a lot of kids struggle with maths. Lucy especially really struggles with maths. Asked me to help with their maths homework, and I was like, absolutely not got a clue what they're teaching them like that. Right? Lucy's answer when she's sitting there, she's really struggling and she's having a bit of a, and then she just went, Alexa, what's the? So I'm like, actually, is the problem solving that she's just going to find like she understands the world that we're living in now, and she's going to find an answer that a lot quicker than she's got to work out. And I understand that there's processes and stuff to understand, so, especially in maths. You go, okay, well, I'm problem solving, but actually. The problem solving now is different to what it was 100 years ago, because they would have gone, well, you're never going to have a calculator in your pocket, are you? You're not. We'll have a computer in our pocket now, and then all of a sudden you've got something you can just shout the thing out, and it's going to give you the answer. That's much more quicker and more intelligent and than we will ever be to get to that answer. And so, like you said, if you can identify, isn't it problem solving? Back to similar to what Jake was like, your friend Jake is going. I'm just identifying. I've got to get an answer. The best way for me to get that answer, I haven't got to work out all this. I'm going to get the right people in to help me get there, or I'm going to ask that person to do that. But surely that's got to be a better thing to be able to teach.
100%. I think there is a place, and we shouldn't overlook it. There's a place of, and there's a responsibility to, at points, to understand the fundamentals, right? So going back to the maths point, I think it's probably very hard to be an incredible statistician or, something in that direction if you don't understand like long division, for example, or, how to kind of multiply equations or multiply fractions, or, how to balance an equation or something like that. Like I'd imagine that those fundamentals, if you are going into becoming a statistician, you probably have to have them. But I think that we value the fundamentals more than is I don't think we need it these days. I think that supports what your argument is. I think we do it back to front. I think maybe at the point that we go and start specialising and we start to understand some of those unique qualities, then it's much easier to go for that individual to go and inquire about the fundamentals in their own way. Based on their own unique inquiry and however it might be attached to the problems that they're trying to solve. And I think actually maybe you could reverse teaching in some ways and sort of shine a light on fundamentals and help people understand that you often have to be able to go to the fundamentals in order to change anything. Otherwise potentially it can be reckless. But we're not here to teach you the fundamentals. We're here to teach you the appreciation and the understanding of what fundamentals are, and maybe we can give you some illustrations and kind of help you build up the way you think about that. And then it's up to you. It's up to you to go and apply that in the world.
Yeah. What I'm interested. Just focusing on you. Like we're talking about education. Like take me back to the beginning with you. Like what. Did you thrive in school? What was your educate like? Was that something? What do I need to know about you to understand you growing up? The shape to who sits here.
Okay, I'll try and give you the bits that are going to best build the answer that I think you're looking for. So, I think probably I should start with, we mentioned parents earlier, and my parents were very supportive. My mum in particular had this attitude, and I think she was probably course correcting like we do as parents from what she didn't have to what she wanted us to have. And it was something along the lines of, you can do anything. So I think she instilled this idea in me of like, I can do anything. I can, so that she one of her like default phrases was, there's no such thing as can't. She really instilled that. Like if I heard the word I'd hear my mum in the back of my mind going, there's no such word as can't. So I think that was like really implanted in me, and I think there's something really interesting there, and I think about that as a parent now. Then get into the school system, and I think on the whole, I had a pretty good experience at school. Like I quite liked it. I did all right. You know, I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of good pals. I didn't know this at the time, but when I look back, I see that I went to my school was tough. There was some really nasty stuff that happened at my school. It was a state school, and it was, it was just really tough. There was some, you know, I don't know if this was by design or we got a bit lucky, but I think what happened is that there was a group of maybe 20 or so of us, and we were like a bubble within our year. And it was like that bubble was quite protected from everything else. So me and that other 19 or so were sort of like found our way through, and we had a lovely time, and it was great. And we were kind of, you know, as integrated as we needed to be into the rest of the school. And I think possibly because of that bubble, it may be that the teachers and the people around us had been more deliberate than I realised at the time. And I wonder if maybe they were able to be a bit more one-to-one with us, be a bit more deliberate, because they kind of recognised that there was something about that little group and, you know, kind of shielding us a little bit and supporting us a bit. So I definitely think whether that happened by accident or by design, I don't know, but I'm really, really grateful that happened, because I think if it hadn't, then my outcome would have been very different. So that was all the way through to secondary school. And then I got to a point, probably again, part of my own growing up, where, and I don't really know where this comes from, but I remember just being really, really impatient. I remember getting to the end of secondary school and just being really like bored with education and be like, I want to get in the real world. I want to go do stuff. Don't really know where that came from, but went and did the A-levels and went and did the degree, mainly to get the ticks in the boxes. Like I was just so bothered about, I wanted to go and work. I wanted to earn money. I wanted to look after myself. I think it would probably, if I really try and unpack it now, I think I've always had this yearning of freedom. To be in control of my time, of myself and stuff. Like, I don't really know what that is, but I think it's probably always been there somewhere. And I think that was my attempt of like, grow up quick, you know, like get sorted, get enough of the things and be able to sort of look after myself. I think it was probably something about that. So I was really impatient from what would have looked like a very young age at the time, where other kids were probably a lot more bothered about, you know, enjoying what they're doing and partying and all that stuff. I was doing a bit of that, but I was pretty serious on like, come on, let's go on.
When you was at that age, but was you then thinking like, I want to get out now, impatience? Was there, at that age, was there a thought of, the freedom element? Was it, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to start a business, or did you just want to get into the workplace and see what landed? Or
I'm hesitating because I want to try and be as honest as I can about what the answer is, because I'm thinking back and going like, what do I actually remember of this, and what do I think was going on? I think probably there were some other things that were going on in the world that overlay onto my experience. I think like the technology in the form of computers and the internet were definitely like starting to exist in the world at a point when I was starting to think about what am I going to be, what am I going to do? And for whatever reason, computers just, that like, as soon as I saw computers and got near them, I was like, that's my thing. For whatever reason, it's just kind of like, there was a click. And I think probably I got into the power of what they could do and what they could be as a tool. I think that spoke to me at a really, really young age. I think I was just like really invigorated by, this isn't just like a calculator. Like, we can make this do stuff for people and we can scale it like in incredible ways. I think there was something there. And so I taught myself to code, and this was my play was that. Like, I was spending a load of time like not going to bed till 3 a.m, like just either putting stuff together, as in like pulling bits of computers together and building stuff, or actually programming. But that was play for me. And then I think I got to a point with it where I realized that was something that was starting to exist in business and exist in the world. And the only thing I could see was like, oh, well, that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to be. And I don't think it was fully formed really at that point. It was just, I was sort of desperate. I wanted to stop. It felt like the education stream was pretending. It felt like that wasn't real. but it felt like there was all this exciting stuff that was around all the world of computer. And at that point, I had the dial-up modem, and it was hard to get. This was very, very early, and the extent of the internet then was these things called IRC, like chat rooms, which were all like green screen terminals, and you would have topics kind of like a Reddit now, like a kind of thread that has a context. It was like a version of that, real early, with real geeks, but all around the world. And I think I was kind of exposed to that at the right time. So I think I could see that, like, this is a global thing, and this is really exciting. Like, what this is going to be able to do for me, for us, for the world is really exciting. And I think I just got really impatient about wanting to be on the right side of that. And then I think that turned into, because then when I started thinking about what am I going to do, what am I going to be, how am I going to have a job, all that stuff, again, my mum comes back into the equation, because I was about 15 or 14. I was around that sort of age, and we were coming into a summer holiday, and I think I'd had a couple of part-time jobs. I'd definitely been a paper boy at that point, but I hadn't really done very much. But I can't remember exactly where I was at. And I remember her saying to me, "Why don't?" Because I think I was talking about, or I don't know, we were talking about computers or programming or kind of work and stuff. And she said, why don't you go and get a job as a programmer? And I thought it was really ludicrous that she was saying that, because I'm like this child in this child's body, and I'm like, I can't go and get a proper job in a proper place. But she was like, well, why don't you just write some letters? And off the back of her kind of nudging me in the right direction, I wrote 20 letters. Hand wrote 20 letters to, and I looked in the yellow pages, because that's what you had to do at the time, because there wasn't really an internet, So I went to the yellow pages, and I found 20 companies that had something around kind of software, and the letter was along the lines of like, "Hi, I'm Neil. I've taught myself to code. I'm really interested in what it is that you're doing. I wondered whether you might have a job for me for the summer. I'd love to talk," or something like that. And I sent these 20 letters out, like literally, put the stamp on and everything. Sent these letters out, and I expected, I think partly because my mum had sort of like ramped me up a bit on it, I sent these letters out thinking, all right, I'm going to get all these responses back. And I got 2 responses back. The first one was a sort of thanks, we'll keep you on file. So I was like, okay, well, that's not great, but at least it's a response. And then the second one was from Liz Cook. And I remember Liz, like lovely Liz, woman, receptionist, PA to the 2 guys that own this company. And she said, my bosses have seen your letter, and they'd love to invite you to come along for a lunch meeting or something like that. And I was just made up. I was like, this is the most exciting thing to happen to me. And I went and bought my first suit. And I bought I think it was one of my dad's briefcases. So I had a briefcase and this ill-fitting suit as like a 14-year-old or something.
Love to see that picture.
I know. It's so good, isn't it? But so I rock up and I meet John and Adrian, and they're the nicest guys, and they've got this little business just around the corner from here. Like, got this lovely little software house, really early, but they're making stuff for the BBC, and they're doing like all this really interesting stuff. And I think they just took a punt on me. I think they just saw me, and they saw the whole thing. I think they saw the briefcase, they saw everything, and they probably saw the spark. And they were like, "Yeah, come on, we can help you out." And I just went into their family, because it was like there was about 15, 20 of them, and it was like a little family. It was beautiful. It was honestly, I feel so fortunate that I had that experience at that age, because I think the other thing that it did is it completely tuned me in to a different way of thinking about what work is and what business is, and how to get a lot of things right that otherwise you wouldn't think about. And for whatever reason, they had thought a lot about that stuff, and that they were so kind to me. They were great. And so going back to your question, I was I'm there as, I forget the exact age, but I was young, like let's call it 15. Worked through the summer with them. And then they gave me keys, and I'd just come and go as I want. And then I basically went through the rest of education with a proper job. And I'm like, building these systems for all sorts of great businesses. And when I could, they'd take me out and I'd go. I remember we had one of our clients was Addenbrooke's Hospital up in London. And I'd go up there with Mike, who was the technical director, and it's him and I'd be really exposed to all of it. But I'm this young guy and I'm still kind of like doing all the education bit. So at the point when I got to university, I was really, really impatient then, because I was like, I felt like I know what the real world looks like over here.
What made you still want to go to university?
I think it was the tick in the box. I really do. Yeah. No one else in my family had been. So I think there was some of that. I think that probably some ego stuff. Partly that's what you do. I don't know. I think it was a whole host of things, but I think probably the simplest answer is it was the tick in the box. I felt as though if I had it, I was more likely to be able to get the kind of jobs that I wanted. But obviously, it didn't go like that at all. And then the other part of your question of like, was I designed for? I think as I got exposed to that, so they were called data line software. As I got exposed to data line, and I started to kind of get into the real world of work and creating stuff for other people and seeing, it was such a small business. I got to see all of it and I loved it. But if there was one thing that I wanted that I didn't have there, is like, I want to feel like I can direct this thing a bit more, like I've got my own ideas of what good looks like and it feels different to this. Not that that's wrong, but just like I've got my own ideas of what this looks like. So I think I probably started to build that muscle of, I think I've got to do this myself at that point, probably still quite young. And I didn't really have a very clear idea of exactly what that was going to be. But I think I remember another real pivotal moment, which was as we got towards the end of the third year at uni, and we had these lock boxes, pigeonholes or whatever it was, where you get kind of mail and stuff that came through to you. And I remember there was a period where they'd just been spammed by all of the big corporates with their graduate trainee schemes. And I remember standing there, open up the thing, and a load of my mates being there, and everyone getting excited about the ones that they were looking for and kind of comparing notes on which ones they were going to apply for and stuff. And I remember in that moment just looking at that stuff thinking, I'm not applying for any of them. I don't want any of it. I didn't say that. I just felt it, like really, really kind of viscerally. And I think what was going on then was like, I'm just not designed to. I don't want to be a number. I don't want to be a cog in the machine. I think probably the freedom thing as well, that was probably playing in. But I was so sure in that's not for me. Like I don't know that I'm that. I don't think I'm employable. I think I've got to go do my own thing. So what happened next is I had a couple of. So I worked for Data. I went off traveling, worked with them for a bit longer, and then had I think 2 other proper jobs as a programmer. But I think I was there as programmers in both of these companies, but the next company I was employee 2 or something, and they grew really quickly. So I was suddenly like way more than what I was there to be. I was learning a lot on the job, but I was outselling and I was like really in the thick of all of it. And it was brilliant. And it was similar with this other job. And I think, I again, don't know how deliberate this was. I think it was probably semi-deliberate. I think I was just building enough confidence, like seeing enough things and probably like getting to a position where I felt ready to do it. And then, I got to a point where it was like, okay, now's the time. We can jump onto that if it's relevant later. And then I was off, and then like I've never really looked back. And I just, I started my first company and off I went. And
how old was you when you started?
I mean, I started all sorts, as we do, but I don't know whether you can call any of them companies. I don't know at what point it becomes properly legit, but the point where I properly, put the documents into company's house and got a limited company, all that kind of stuff. I don't know, maybe early 20s, something like that.
Yeah, well, there's so much there, right? Like so many things, like just people listening, and like even me as a parent, you sort of go like, what a brilliant thing to go like writing those letters in the first place. Right?
I know, yeah.
But what I really took from that story is I just wanted to play.
Yeah.
I was playing around. I just wanted to play, and I just wanted to carry on doing that. So you found something that you was good at, that you enjoyed doing, that lit you up. That you go, and that I think that's for me, circling back to all of the things that we're talking about. Again, back to our manual, our unique skills, finding the thing that we're good at, that we love, that we play. Like we stop. Like I think I look at the kids, and you probably just say, because how old are yours? We're quite similar, aren't they?
Soon to be
ages?
11 and 8. Yeah, so I think ours
yeah,
are almost
I
exactly
remember
the same.
saying
Yeah.
we're in a similar sort of things. I'm like, when does society get hold of them? And probably around this age, right, when they're going, okay, you've got to do sats now, and then you're doing this, and then this sort of almost, but just that imagination and almost stopping them from playing, right? And because these things have to start getting serious, because you've got to go and get A levels or university, or you go out and get a job, or whatever that looks like. Actually, what does it? And I know I'm maybe going a little bit too off the scale with it, but you go, what does it look like if you just go, I just want to play at the thing I'm really good at, and I'm going to figure that out. And you've pretty much, like, you look at your career and the businesses you've built, generally, really, if you strip it down, it's come from curiosity to find out about that stuff, find something that you're good at and that you play with, and then you just go and explore, and you're curious about, and then build businesses on the back of that, and success, and all of them things have come from that.
I think that, so play's a really interesting word, isn't it? Like, and I think work is an interesting word as well, right? So where do you draw the line around what work is and what play is? So, because work is the thing you do when you leave the house, if we leave the house now, and you go to the work, and you go into work mode and you do the thing, whatever it is that you do. But for a lot of people, that might be like, emails and some meetings. And it's like, is that really work? What is that? At what point, if you're there making a cup of tea in work, is that work? Is that not work? I don't know. So and then equally play, if you're doing like what we're doing now, is this work? Is this play? Because it kind of feels like play, but it also feels a bit like work. I think we've got it all wrong again, because I think that we, out of convenience, we've put these words together and we've lost sight of why we do what we do. And we've told ourselves that work has to be hard. But like, I don't know about you. So one of the things I do at home is I do the washing up at home, right? That's not because I want a prize. I'm not saying because I want a prize. It's just that's one of the things I do at home. I quite like doing the washing up, but it's work, isn't it? Like, on one level, I don't like the washing up. If I'd never had to do the washing up again, I'd be okay with that. But I quite like the washing up. But it is definitely work. Do you know what I mean? But it's not. But we wouldn't say it's work, because I think we attach the meaning of work to, do we get paid for it? And I think this confuses the matter even further. So, I think one of the resets that would be healthy for all of us is to come back to a place of what lights me up. So going back to the innate thing. So mine was something around computers. I'll come back to the computers thing in a minute, because there's an interesting aside to it. But what lights me up, and then like, how can I create value out of that thing for somebody else? Not for me, for somebody else. If you can answer that, and there are at least 1,000 people that you could create that value for, which most of the time there will be, because we're so globalized and so connected now, then it's like, well, then you can turn that into work. But you just have to be very deliberate about doing that and choosing to do it. And I think often, because of the systems and the way and the constructs that we've designed, that we tell ourselves are real, we don't believe that equation's as simple as what I just described. But I think it is. I'll just go and unpack one other bit, because I think it kind of like helps validate my point. When I was talking earlier about, like, me finding computers and programming and all that kind of stuff, so I definitely grew up as a programmer. That was like my thing. But I realised at a point on the journey that we talked about earlier, I was, again, relatively young, that me and the geeks, I was a geek, right? I was a nerd. I'm there with the other geeks and the other nerds, right? And we're all in it together, and we're all getting really excited about like how that function works, like that language over that language, like real kind of geeky stuff. But I noticed that there was a difference in me and the rest of the geeks. And if I put words to the difference now, the difference is that their beauty was the noughts and ones, and my beauty wasn't the noughts and ones. So not like, I could appreciate their beauty for sure. Like, you show me a beautiful bit of code and explain how it works, and I see the beauty in it for sure. But my beauty didn't stop there. My beauty moved to, how does what you made make a difference to Sam? Where other people, that for whatever reason, that wasn't their thing. That's not, and that's cool. That's fine. That's brilliant. Because if I work with those people, we all get what we need. Because I haven't realised that at this point, I hadn't realised that all that stuff that I've just described, that's not programming. That's entrepreneurship, that's building businesses, that's psychology, that's sales, that's all that's marketing, that's all these other domains that I hadn't put labels on all that stuff. I just saw that there was a difference. And again, so my play extends out to that. My play extends out to, oh right, so I'm like that, so I should be doing more of that. And what that means is that these other people, where they are going to write the most optimized, the most beautiful code, the code that is so easy for other people to pick up and work on, like, cool. Because I see their beauty and I love what they do and I can speak their language. Cool, do more of that. And then I can go and work on all that other stuff. And we're all humming now. This is brilliant. Is that making sense?
Yeah, it
so
really
I think
does.
I think the play, the work, I think it really does extend out to the thing we talked about before, which is hard to put words to, but what that innate thing is. And I think if you can get the ikigai thing, it's a bit trite, but I think if you can get this stuff right, if you can dial into it, I think a lot of people get quite lucky. I think I was quite lucky. I think I found a thing at a relatively young age, and I think I was quite lucky to find it at the time I did. And I think there's all sorts of other threads to that. But I think that we can do a lot more to create our own luck. And I think being too subservient to the systems that sit around us and thinking that the systems are just going to get us there is probably about the most naive thing that we can do. I think being more cognizant of what we're talking about, and then changing your attitude towards it to be very clear about, like, what is my play? Where do I find play that other people don't find play? What is it? What's different about me to the people around me that just seems to light me up and invigorate me? I think that we should all be looking for that thing in ourselves and each other. And I think we should be helping each other to find it. And I think when we find it, we should be celebrating it. And I think if we can do that in any context, then the world's going to be a lot better for it. Yeah.
I just wanted to take a moment to talk about one of our sponsors, Nostos, an authentic experience of Greece right here in the heart of Hove. In a world brimming with dining options, finding that one place that captivates your palate and heart isn't always easy. It's about more than food. It's the stories, the ambience, the slice of another world. This is the essence of Nostos, an award-winning Greek restaurant. With traditional recipes passed down through generations, each dish promises a story and a piece of heritage. And Nostos is more than just a restaurant, it's a community contributor. Each dining experience supports initiatives close to their heart, from local charities to cultural events, enriching Brighton and Hove's social fabric. They also provide catering services, bringing Greek cuisine to your personal events. For a taste of Greece without leaving town, visit nostos-hove.co.uk. And when you do go, say Sam recommended the feta nests. Oh my God, they are amazing. It's a kind of, I guess I'm really intrigued that then, as a parent now, looking at your kids, what's the sort of message? Like, say, for example, what message are you giving to them around this type of stuff? Because from what you've learned and the way you see the world, what is the message you'll be giving to them?
One of the things I've found so far is that it can be really hard to find the right words for your kids, because you have to dumb the language down to suit the way they want to hear it and where they are at the time. So I'm going to sound like I've got all the answers and I do this really well, and I don't. It's just definitely something I'm a bit more conscious about. But I think where I've got to is, I think it's less about what we say and more about what we do. And so what I try to do is I try to look for I try and see what it is that I think lights my kids up, what makes them uniquely them. And I try to show up and be as supportive as I can, as interested as, I just try and open it up for them as much as I can. And at the moment, that's the best playbook I've got. I think probably as they get older, I want to be there as anything I can be to them. I think the other thing I found as a parent, and again, it's one of these sort of beautiful contradictions of the world, that, like, we are probably the best people and the worst people to be what you're describing to our kids. So I'm aware of that as well, and I'm thinking I probably need to think about how I do it vicariously in the round, so I'm aware of that. But yeah, I think the best answer I've got at the moment is I just try and see what I think the things are and do everything I can as a parent to be as supportive of it and as encouraging. And I thought, like, Billie Eilish, you into Billie Eilish at all?
Yeah.
Right. So there's a great documentary, if you haven't seen it, about, it's really good. So definitely watch it. So there's a documentary, it was on Apple, I think. And it's basically like somehow there was a lot of behind the scenes of what happened before we knew who she was and her brother. And there's a lot of stuff, them recording the first album in the house and all, because they did it all at the parents' house, right? They were really young and they didn't have a label or anything traditional. But one of the things that comes through in that documentary is that they, so her and her brother Phineas, they were homeschooled. So that's interesting. And then there was one very strict rule in their house, which was, if you're making music, there's no bedtime. And this was like a really strict implemented rule. And so because they wanted to feel free and wanted to feel like adults and all the rest of it and take advantage, and because they loved making music, they would just make music whenever they wanted to make music. And it became this really, it's one of the things that comes through in the documentary is probably like one of those hidden switches that activated some of what it became. Like, you know, if they hadn't have had that and they hadn't have had that input from their parents of like, no, when you're making music, there's no bedtime, you crack on. And it's like, well, that means that the way we make music, the way we think about it, it's like, well, it transcends everything else. We can start up as late as we want. We can do this whenever we want. It's so celebrated. So I think actually, like, going back to my tactic as a parent, I think that's the best I've got, is like, try and see it. Don't necessarily try and put the words that we'd put as adults to it or try and labour it particularly, but just try and do what you can to enable it and support it.
Because there's an element of there, like our mutual friend John Barnes, it obviously talks a lot about autonomy, right?
Yeah.
And but with Billy, like, I guess giving her the autonomy, like, if that's what you're doing, you can, no problem. You decide when you do that. Like, there's something in that, isn't there, right? Like, I listened to him, I've read his book and I listened to that. I remember having a conversation with, and I find it fascinating, like, obviously with Ivor and what they did, and then going to school, and then like, you just go, wow, I just think for me, like, the conversation like we're having now, and similar with John and other people, that you go, and a lot of my own journey, I think we spoke about when we met last time, and I was saying, like, just questioning the life or the systems that we've been sold, I believe, right? So what we were shown when we was younger was, this is what life is. Married, kids, live in this place, job or business, whatever it is. And that's how you go on. And I'm just questioning all of those things a little bit.
I think, again, if you deconstruct the whole thing, it's all made up. It's all made up. Like, even if you go all the way up to governments and the House of Lords, like the King and Queen, it's all made up. All of it's made up. At some point somewhere, somebody said this would be a good idea, and then they made it happen. Then I think what happens is we get into a convenience where, you know, like a really good real world example of this is that we continue to set new laws, but there's no good system or process to take laws away. Have you ever thought about that? So what it means is, like, we just layer up more and more and more of what you can't do, but we don't go, actually, that thing's not relevant anymore, so just take that away. And and I think we do it because we are, because it's just easy, it's just convenient. It's convenient to just go, oh, well, that's the way it works, that's what we do.
Because to make changes sometimes,
it's hard.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's all made up, and and the liberating thing for you and I and people listening is that means we can make up anything, because it's all made up anyway. So, and, you know, so I think Steve Jobs is on record as saying something like this, you know, like, anything that you see was an idea in someone's head to start with, and now it's this. So therefore, we can make anything we want it to be. We just have to decide to do it and then go do it. So I think that's a really liberating thought experiment. Then you get into the real world and you go, yeah, but it is hard. It's really tough, because change is really hard, and actually people don't want to change. So it is very hard to do it. It doesn't mean you can't do it. So I think if we
believe we've all got the ability to change. Like, so I guess people listening, like, maybe they're going through stuff or whatever, or they're in this system. They've gone to university, gone out, got a job. They're getting to maybe a midlife crisis, awakening, whatever it is, and they're thinking, what? Like, do you believe we've all, you know, with the constraints as we are at the minute, cost of living crisis, and sometimes parents as well, and you know, like, it's easy for us to sit on here and go, just go and do. Like, do you believe that we all got that ability to?
Oh yeah, sadly I do. I think I think we can get caught up, and I do this as well. I think you can get caught up in like, oh, the problems are so big, and again, because we see it all now, and everything's so interconnected, it definitely looks like the problems look like a massive problem, and then they are very far-reaching problems, and there's some big players that feel very much out of our orbit. So I think you can get, you can hear that sort of message, and then look at it at that level, and then go, like, I can't. Who am I? Like, what can I do? But then I think there's lots of really, really good evidence that you can look at it from like bottom up, or from where we are in this, even just having this conversation, there is always the ripple effect. There's the butterfly effect. Like if I do something and I do it in that direction, I'm deliberate about doing it in that direction, then I might affect that person over there and that person. And then if I affect that person over there and that person, that might ripple out and affect those people and those people. So I think that's where I've got to. I think we have to hold on to that strong belief that yes, we can change stuff, because we can. Like academically, we can change stuff. It's not easy to change stuff, but we can do it. And therefore, like, let's do it within the world that we exist in. Let's approach that in a way where it's like, no, we can make anything we want it to be. And I'm just keep going. I'll just keep batting away at it, like find my people and just keep going and be really, really deliberate about trying to do that. And I think if you do that at a real grassroots level, then I think actually that's probably where most of the meaningful change is going to come from anyway. And I think you can overlay grassroots into business, incidentally. I think that you see most of the biggest changes, I think, happening in the world probably, directly or indirectly through business these days. And businesses don't have to be massive to really change things profoundly. So I find a lot of comfort in that.
Yeah. And I guess like, but for people listening to us sitting, like, is that the advice you give? Like, where does someone start going? Yeah, it's easy. I've got these bills up. I've got this job, and I'm in this situation. Like, what? But me and you have both done lots of different things, right? So maybe it comes easier to us to go, I'm just going to change this. This ain't working, so I'm going to go and change this, because we've done it multiple times. So you look in the toolbox and go, yeah, I've done that for a little bit. But other people may have been in that same place for a long time, but something doesn't feel right. Like, what advice? What do you say to someone at that moment? You go, okay, first step is what?
I think the first step is probably to get better at listening to your gut. There's that whole thing of like the head and the heart, and it's also interconnected. But I think there's, again, lots of evidence to support this idea that the gut knows the answer before we've rationalised it. So when you feel that way, if you start asking yourself the question, if you're waking up a lot and you're going, I feel like I shouldn't be doing this job, like that's probably the easiest one to speak of. Like, I shouldn't be doing this job. Like, I'm not getting what I need from this job. This job's not right. I'm not feeling good about it. Right? If you keep coming up against that same thought, then your gut's telling you something. And I think, again, society has not supported the idea that it's absolutely the right thing to do to take that signal really seriously. And I think often what we do is we wait until there is some other catalyst of change that is external to us.
It's forced upon us. Change is forced, because there is that, isn't there? Like,
well, yeah, that's right. Change is going to happen. Change is going to happen.
Yeah.
We're going to get older. Shit's going to happen. Like, change is going to happen. So therefore, we might as well get good at dealing with it. We might as well get good at like kind of pointing it in the direction that suits us and suits where we're at. And that's not being obnoxious or thinking you're the only person in the world. But I think that dialing into what's actually going on for you, again, if we all do it, the world can only get better. I'm sure of it. The number of times, again, that I've been in context of different businesses, and I've, built a really meaningful relationship with an individual and got to know what they're about, and then got to a point with them, and they are at a point where it's like, you're in the wrong place. Like, actually, the best thing now is you got to stop being this thing and be that thing. And sometimes that means you don't stay in this company, go in that company. But yeah, I think that we're still hung up, I think, a bit on artificial security. Like the sense that like there isn't a job for life anymore. Like that died out with a previous generation, and I think we're still pretending that exists. I think we're all doing the kind of dance around that one. It's not real. So that means that having high agency is probably really important now. That means that you've got to know what you are, what value you can create, and then how that applies and who your people are, and then you got to go find the answers. So I think that further supports this idea of like, listen to your gut. If the gut is telling you something, then don't just, well, firstly, don't ignore it, listen to it, speak it out, have the conversations with the people that know you, because the other people that know you, they know the answer as much as your gut knows the answer. So you can get some good validation there. And then I think the hard bit is is turning it into a decision, like unconscious versus conscious. That's hard. That's really, really hard, because then it all becomes real. It's like, well, I need the money to pay the bills next month, or whatever it might be. And there's all sorts wrapped up in that. But I think you can get better at that. I really do. I think Seth Godin's got this beautiful phrase of this idea of like dancing on the edge of your comfort zone. I think that's really good, because so, you know, we all need some amount of comfort. I think we're wired to find safety, and I think it's an abstraction of that. But if we try and jump too far outside of our comfort zone, well, then we're going to fall apart. Like, unless we've got like a kind of safety net around us of some degree, that we're going to fall apart. It's dangerous. Don't do that. That's really dangerous. But you've got to recognise where is the comfort zone, and you've got to get really good at dance. And I like the way that he frames it, because I think it gives the right spirit to it. Like, it's playful. Dance on it, you know, because that's what life's about. If you're dancing on the edge of your comfort zone, you get good at doing it. I think life becomes more fun. I really do, because it's not about succeeding and failing at that point, because you know you're not always going to succeed, because you know that you're in a space where it's like, this feels uncomfortable, but uncomfortable it can be really good.
I remember speaking to one Paula Reed. She described it really well. She was like, we spend a lot of time in our comfort zone, right? A majority of the world, we spend a lot of time actually. And you've got the other two. So you've got your stretch zone, as you called it, and then you've got your panic zone. Don't really want to spend too much time in a panic zone, but a stretch zone, that's where we should spend the majority of our time. Because what happens in that stretch zone is that it's uncomfortable, that it's sometimes hard and it's a bit difficult, it's unknown, there's no certainty there, and we like certainty. It's got them things. But also in that stretch zone is excitement and joy and, you know, the willingness to explore something new, do you know what I mean? And you get all of them things. So actually, if we're spending a comfort zone, it's just a bit, you know, spend that a lot of time in that stretch zone, you get all them fear and anxiety and all that, as well as the excitement and the joy and the rewards potentially and success of those elements. And I think that I listened to another podcast recently. Chris Williamson was talking with Stephen Bartlett. I like both their podcasts, so I listened to them two chatting. It was amazing. But he's not. Chris Williams said he went up the realization, like you talk about problems, right? A lot of it is, yeah, but I'm worried about that. I'm worried about that. But actually, if it doesn't liberate you to go, we're all going to fucking die.
Exactly. Yeah.
We don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah.
Like, if that doesn't liberate you to go, the problem's not that, let go, just put the problem down a little bit, or it's not as big. I'm not trying to put out there, I'm trying to sit with this, because I'm not trying to put out there that, because everyone's problems are their problems, right? And of course I get that, and sometimes the smallest have affected me sometimes, right? But if we can just, when I've interviewed a couple of people recently, an amazing guy a couple of weeks ago, Gavin O'Donoghue's in stage 4 terminal cancer, right? This guy's, he was just so amazing, because he's facing death in the face almost, right? And yet he's sitting there still with hope, and he's not only with hope, but with living every life and appreciating right now where he is. He's got some big problems because he's facing death, right? And he's got kids same age as ours, and he's trying to leave it. And what he's done over the last year, he's gone out and he's got his handicap down and gone and played in the Open. You know what I mean? He's recorded loads of conversations with his mum and dad, interviewing them with pals, and so he can leave a legacy for his kids, doing all these things, reaching out to Pet, and just putting his episode out, and the amount of love for that man is incredible. Like my Instagram was like boom, 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 boom. Gav, what a legend, all that. No, this is the guy who's just, this is life, and I don't know, I've maybe got this little amount of time left, and I know the reality of life, we can't always live every day like it's my last. But we can take elements of that, surely, and a little bit like what you're saying, goes like with these problems, we can make change. We can, if we're not really happy now. Fuck, we're going to die, so do the thing that you want to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do you know, so I think that it's understandable that as adults, a lot of us get caught up in like the routine of life, the rhythm. You know, like we've got shit to do, got to get on, got to make the dinner, whatever it is. Like got to do the stuff. And I think that so when do we, with Gav, like the catalyst is you're sitting in a room and someone's like, you got a year left, mate. You know, like, so right, okay, that's a wake up, that's a catalyst. I wonder, how do we create our own catalysts? And again, if I overlay this into the way I think about business, I think one of the best hacks I've got for how you create a great business is this idea of like, be very, very deliberate about making dedicated time and get really good at working on your business. Like, which all of it sounds obvious and sounds easy, but in practice, it doesn't happen and people are really bad at it, right? But it's a very easy thing to change. You go to a different space, you do it, I think, once a month, but you do it with like regularity. You absolutely commit to being there. And when you're there, all of the day-to-day bullshit that you're dealing with, you leave wherever it was, and you come back to the bigger purpose, the bigger plan, the mission. Where are we? Where are we on the map? What's going on? What's getting in the way? And you expose yourself. Like, what's really going on? You unpack it all. What decisions am I avoiding? And you ask yourself all the hard questions, and then you come out of that space with some new decisions that you're going to make, and you commit to yourself that I'm going to go do those things. And you do that with rhythm. And when you do that with rhythm, I think that's one of the ways, I think it's one of the simplest ways to build great businesses instantly. It's just very hard to do it in practice. If you take
what stops us from doing that then? Because I love that. I want to go on that through, but what stops people from?
Because the realities of the day-to-day are very, very real. You get sucked up in it. Everybody gets sucked up in it. It's a machine. You've got to keep the machine moving, you know, and to keep the machine moving, it's not important. This thing's not important. And there is always something else that is urgent that I've got to turn my attention to. I've got to do other things. Other things are more important because I've got to go meet that client, because if I meet that client, then I might land that deal. Or if I, you know, and that just goes on and on and on. And it doesn't matter how big the company is, doesn't matter what's going on. Everybody tells themselves the same story on this one. And I think that the companies that get really, really good at this are those that understand the value of what I'm describing, of what they get, what the benefits, right? But I don't think, and again, I think there's beautiful metaphors around the way we think about, if you think about what a business is a bunch of people that are collectively trying to solve a problem together, and they're trying to line up to solve the problem to create value for somebody else. So it's not that dissimilar to, at an individual level, figuring out what your gut's saying and then getting deliberate about doing a thing that you weren't otherwise going to do. It's just that their contexts are different, and there's more people involved on one side, and, you know, we put slightly different levels, but it kind of the same thing is change. And so I think that if you go back to what's getting in the way, you know, like for a lot of people, it's like you're on the treadmill, you're doing the thing, and it's like, yeah, but how are you going to do this? And we talked a bit about the gut instincts and listening to that and then having the conversation. But I think there's something else about, like, how do you actually make space for it? How do you prioritize it and make space? So I think some of us will take the idea of New Year's resolutions more seriously than others. So I think that's kind of interesting. Maybe there's a moment there, but I don't think that, like, again, we're not taught how to do this. It's not like kind of mainstream, but I've been really fortunate. I was in one of my businesses, we got onto this, for want of a better way to describe it, like an accelerator thing for the up and coming tech companies in the UK, and it was funded by the UK government, and it was brilliant. This thing that they've got onto by this company called Tech Nation, upscale this thing, and an outcome of us getting into that program was so we were there with Mumzo and with other like big companies that you'll have heard of, and we're all there on that journey together. And what they did is they put us into these groups of 8 or so. We didn't know each other. They curated who was going to be in these different groups so that you were with people that weren't in the same sort of industry and stuff like that. And then the idea was that, it's called Forum. And the idea, they taught us this practice of how you basically show up to be your kind of board of advisors to one another at every level, not just how you run your business, but also what you're hiding from as a human. Like, so all the way through, like really deep stuff. And they taught us this thing, and then they put us into these groups, and like, off you go. And I've been in that group ever since. This is like 10 years later, and we've met every month, this same group of people, right? And I didn't appreciate what that was to start with. I think none of us did. I think we all saw it as like, okay, well, that would be a useful thing. We're all kind of at a similar sort of stage on our business journey, similar sorts of people, we can learn from each other. And I think it started off as being quite academic and quite tactical. And very quickly, it completely transcended into this is when, because every month I sit there and I spend some time journaling on all these different points around what's going on in my life. You know, one of the topics is like spirituality and significant other. So like, you know, your partner, friends, family, country, like there's a whole structure, right? And we write down like where we're at with all those things. And then we tell you have 5 minutes and you blow it all out. You say it freeform, like this is what's going on. You don't hide anything. And then there's a what's keeping you up and what are you proud of? And then if the thing that's keeping you up is a big deal, and everyone else will identify if it's a big deal because they'll know what the threads are and how it all kind of ladders up to your life and all the rest of it. So sometimes other people will call you out, sometimes you call yourself out. There's this thing. Now we work on it together. And you've got all these people and their only investment is that they're there for the power of the group. And so, you know, like I said, I've had the incredible benefit of having that as an ingredient in my life. And one of the things I've seen through that experience is like, oh, that is permission. That's permission every month, 3 hours, doesn't matter. We put it in. It's the most important thing. You can't miss it. The only reason you can miss it is if you go to someone's funeral or something. Like we take it really seriously. Like you can't miss it. That's the most important thing. And we all take it that seriously and everyone shows that up. And honestly, it's so valuable. But we can all put that we can just decide to put that into our lives. You know, we can just do that.
And there's something there that I'm listening to you talk and I'm wondering that I know that obviously a lot of the stuff I'll bring back to, you know, my mission and mental health and how we're trying to tackle that. And I'm listening to that and going, is that potentially a way of trying like creating because you know maybe we're if we come around to AI and we're robots and all this stuff about it, but actually that human connection, that soul, like someone looking into something, being there for you and going, I'm going to hold this space. You're going to come and share really openly and vulnerably exactly where you are as a human being.
Yeah,
I'm going to hold that space for you. And actually, as a collective, if we can help, what can help?
I think you're right. Is it like, so if the question is that kind of an answer? Is that a missing part of the jigsaw puzzle or the missing part of the new system that we need? I think you're right. I think yes. And then I think about how, I think there's a bit of an uptick in this idea of like men's circles and that kind of thing. I think one of the problems with that is the positioning, I think, can be quite off. I think it can be something where it doesn't feel like it's necessarily as successful unless you've got a problem. And so I think you're sort of shutting the door on a lot of people. And I think the other thing, going back to something we said earlier, is that it's very like men's circles, women's circles. And I actually think, again, part of the power of what I've experienced in the thing I described is that it's men and women. And actually I learn a ton of stuff because sometimes when I talk about what's going on with Emma and some of my struggles, there's women there that will play back what their lived experience is in the way where it helps me understand what's going on for Emma in a completely different way. And so I think there's something really powerful about that as well. Yeah. But I think we've got into something quite interesting that kind of exists at multiple levels. But I think the really fundamental principle is you can make time to work on yourself and to create catalysts of change for yourself. You can be very deliberate about doing it. You just have to choose to do it. And I think it's made easier when you have more of a system and you have other participants in the system that are kind of bought in the same way that the kind of thing that I described. And then so in business, like I said earlier, it's maybe a bit easier to get that away. Once people buy into the concept, believe it, I think it's easier to get it away because you've already got the people and you've already got the idea that they're all trying to do the same thing together. So there's kind of like a lot of the recipes already there. You just need to bring it together.
I think there's a couple of things, especially people living from a business point of view like that, and actually from a person, but that taking yourself out of that your normal environment, putting my friend Charles, who hopefully listens to this, this is like his work, right? He creates these away days for people, for founders to go in nature, and you go and you sit in it. Like the 100th episode come from his away day. I went and gave myself saying I've got to work on the 100, got to work on the 100th episode, got to work on the 100. Didn't do it. Go to his away day with the one intention. He starts the day, what's your intention? I want to work on the 100th. And it started from that. And I always say to him, the reason I've done that 100th episode on February the 3rd last year was because I sat on it as a way day and I focused on that time. I allowed myself time to work on something as opposed to
In it.
And you're so right to create that space. I think anyone listening, I can't tell you how important that is, right? That thing. But actually, I'm wondering, again, back to us as humans looking into that, like, we don't allow ourselves the time. I think society doesn't necessarily allow us, or the message from society is we've got to be productive all the time, we've got to do that. We don't allow ourselves the time to just sit with a feeling, sit with emotions, because it's hard. It's fucking hard, isn't it, to do that. So actually, do we as human beings to become the best versions of ourselves? We've mentioned that in a business sense, but as individuals, we need to allow ourselves to sit in that silence and with those questions, right? Is that where there was a phrase, it was something like, the answers you're looking for is in the silence you're avoiding, something along them lines, right? There's something in there that, and I think, like, for me, the clarity I've gained over the last few months is because I've allowed myself last year, probably for the first time in my life, to sit in silence and actually really try and, I wonder whether, from your experience and the people I guess you work with as well, and the founders that you've seen maybe thrive, have they got what patterns have you noticed? Is that something that they maybe do more than the people at home?
There's definitely something special about somebody that is wired as an entrepreneur. I think that there is some innate qualities that mean that they are more likely to see curiosity as something to step towards than to sort of shy, like to experiment, to explore, to try. So I think there are some innate qualities that typically go hand in hand with founder entrepreneur. I don't think that because of that, the thing that we're talking about here necessarily comes easy for all of them. And I actually think that is one of the things that prevents a lot of great founders and entrepreneurs and business leaders to achieve the things that they actually want to achieve, ironically. Because I think what it means is that they're there doing the hard work. But for me, it's like, that, who was it that said, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I'll spend the first 5 sharpening the axe. And I think I think you're right. We don't see that 5 hours as the work, and we don't know what that work is. It's quite obscure, and we don't necessarily give permission to that work. But what I've learned is that is definitely the work. There is a ton of work that is there, that is messy, and it's hard to explain. And sometimes it's very exposing. Sometimes you don't have all the right information, so you have to go more on gut feel and you have to throw it around a little bit. Sometimes you have to have different perspectives, and those different perspectives won't align. So it's really messy and it's really weird, and it definitely can't do it off the back of a spreadsheet. So I think that there's this weird opposing force, and I think those that find it, they're probably a bit more dialed into some of the stuff that we're talking about at a more human level. Because I think, again, it's one of the things I've learned about building great businesses. You can't build great businesses if you don't have people that are driving those businesses who are on a journey of change themselves and signed up to that journey. Because if the business is changing, then they're changing, and they've got to be very comfortable with some level of uncertainty in what's going on, and also not having all the right answers, figuring it out as they go and asking for help and all that kind of stuff. So there are all these interesting qualities that I think are not, going back again, it kind of full circle on a lot of the other stuff we've spoken about. We don't identify a lot of those qualities. We don't talk about those qualities. They're just sort of hidden things. And I think that they are very, very important, real enablers. I think that they are, if this is a bit of a sidestep, but it's interesting. There's a guy out in Silicon Valley who's kind of famed to be the most successful angel investor. So like as an individual that puts money into businesses, he is by far and away the most successful. If you measure success as being he puts money into these businesses and these businesses go on to become very successful, financially based businesses, right? And when you look at this guy and you look at what does he do that other people don't do, there's two things that are really interesting. One is that he will meet somebody. So he only takes meetings through his network, right? So anyone that just inbounds him that's interested, no, it doesn't work. You've got to come via my network, which is a really interesting filter initially. And then the next thing he does is it's something like 5 minutes or 15 minutes, but it's a short, punchy amount of time where there's no pitch deck, there's no big charade. You show up, tell me about what you're doing, ask some questions, and then within that 15 minutes, he makes a decision about whether he's going to invest in you or not. If he does invest, he says, yep, it's a stat, like he will only ever invest 250k at a time or whatever it is. And it's like, he makes it, and then from that point, it makes it very simple. He's definitely going to do a deal, sign something, and that's it for done. And if he doesn't invest, he spends all the rest of his time helping you and everybody he meets to just try and create as much value in the ecosystem as he can, right? So I think that's really interesting because you've got all of these other entities like VCs and private equity and all these money people that are trying to crack the code on like, how do we back the winners? And I've been through the experience, so I know a bit about what it looks like. And it's like the amount of analysis, the amount of work that is happening on a spreadsheet, in order to get to a decision is phenomenal. It is really, really impressive, real impressive. But this guy doesn't do that, and he outperforms all of the people that are doing it a different way. And what I find really interesting in that, going back to what we were talking about before, is like, what is it about that different way? What he's listening to his gut. What he's doing, he's got really, really good at listening to his gut, and he's got some other systems that support his ability to listen to his gut and get to a good answer quickly.
Do you think that he's able to identify? There's obviously then something in. I heard Tony Robbins talk about something the other day around patterns and behaviours. Right? He identifies this is what the patterns and behaviours in an individual. Like he can get within 15 minutes of chatting to someone. I've got an idea about you, and you fit the mold for these patterns and behaviours that's going to enable you to go on and thrive. And then obviously, surely there's got to be something within there that. Again, I think I'm trying to, more I'm learning about, I guess, business as a whole is that purpose and that there's got to be something deeper than I've just got this great idea for a business, right?
100%. Yeah, again, I think we get this wrong in the way we think about this as a society. I think we think people start businesses to make money.
But I think what some people do, but
yeah. So again, it's really nuanced, but it's really important. I think that probably everybody that starts a business thinks about the equation of making money somewhere in the process of going from I'm not doing it to I am going to do it.
Did you start that way when you started your first business?
So I definitely thought about how I could make money making a business. But, and this is the hidden detail that's really important, is that I think that society thinks that is the driver, and I don't think it is. I think that the driver is almost always, I can do something better. I believe, so I see a way of doing things, and if I do it this way, I think I can do it a bit better than the way it's done at the moment. I think that is typically the way that the origin story of almost every business. And of course, what goes hand in hand with that is, what does that mean from a financial point of view? Can I earn what I earn more now? Can I earn more? Like, I think that definitely comes into the equation, but I think a load of other things come into the equation as well. But I think we tell ourselves that that's the thing, and it's not. It's how can I make something a bit better? What happens is we go from, okay, I think I can make something a bit better. I'm really confident. I'm really okay, I'm going to doing this. I'm going to make something a bit better. And then we go start the thing. And we start, and everything gets real. And we get to a point, and I lived through it, we get to a point where we're paying people's mortgages. And we start to know a bit about their lives. And we start to feel this huge sense of burden and responsibility on what it is that we're doing. And then that thing of making this thing better, which is the purpose, we lose it. We lose sight of it. And we start to become a bit subservient to whatever it is that's keeping the machine going. And that happens so easily, and it happens without people realizing that it's happened. And I think when it has happened, people feel as though getting back to whatever it was is impossible. And I think that's a lot of the reason why most young businesses fail in the first few years. I think it's because that happens, and then it's not what they hoped it to be. It's not what they wanted it to be. But I think it's because what they haven't done is got back. They haven't put that purpose that drove them at the core, and they haven't driven what they're doing by that purpose. And so I think it's one of the other flips. It's one of the other things that I do, that I exist for. That I think if we do more of it, we make the world way, way better. You just figure out what that purpose is that's driving that business, and you put it in the heart and soul of what you're doing, not just internally, but you do it in service of the customer that you're serving as well. Figure that out, and then drive everything back to that. And it's fun again. It's liberating. It's exciting.
God, it's so much for me. Like listening to it, I'm thinking, it's so strange sitting here where I am right now today. I'm thinking 15 years I've been in business, different businesses, tried this, and nothing. I've supported myself and my family. Financially, I haven't done, but whatever. Do you know what I mean? I've supported my family. So, okay. And I've done stuff that I really genuinely pretty much enjoy doing. But that's a cool thing. Like, okay. And I'm probably, and I said this on the podcast the other day, I'm probably in the worst financial position I've been in since I've been in business. I'm a bit, like, brutally honest. Yeah. The problem of that is outweighed by the purpose and mission of where I'm and how aligned I am with where I'm going. And because of the clarity, you're able to go, and there's something that's bigger than me, right? So you go, there's something bigger here, and there's something, I think for the first time probably, I've looked there and I've found what that thing is, and it aligns with everything. I've just feel in so much alignment, and that clarity I've got. Again, I said with our mutual friend John Lee, just looked at me, he just went, "You're so clear, so clear." He goes, "I'm almost jealous of that place that you're in right now," and I just feel infused by it. And it's just trying, I think, for listeners trying to, I guess, I'm really conscious with your journey. Where did you get to that realization? How quick did you get to that? Like building store, was that one of the reasons that, look at me asking about a million questions in one, let me stop. With storage, I guess, building that and then stepping away, was there a realization for you that went?
Yeah, I think maybe sometimes when you look back, firstly, let me just go back and say it's very brave to recognize what you're doing right now, and the way you're saying it and the way you're lighting up and you're running towards it is brave. You should take a minute to acknowledge that in yourself, because like that's the success. That's the thing we talked about earlier, and also I think that there's another misconception wrapped up in what you said, that 15 years, in some ways you were framing the 15 years as, didn't quite get it right. Kind of did on some level, but didn't really. And I meet a lot of people. Like typically the businesses that help now are businesses that have been around for a while. Like the business is there. There's people, there's systems, there's customers. It's all there. And then typically when I get under the skin of it and we really get to the stuff, it's the same sort of story. It's like, this is good. Like, it's all right. This has happened. We got that and we got that. It just doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. Well, what doesn't feel right? And it's always the same thing. It's like, and again, everyone should give themselves a bit of slack. We haven't taught any of this. Like a lot of these practitioners, they didn't learn business. They didn't learn marketing skills. They didn't learn a lot of this stuff. And also they didn't learn, that's the hard skills of it. What about all the soft skills? Like no one's taught us this. We've just kind of got in, we could see a way of doing something better. And then we just got the hammer out and just start hammering things. And like sometimes it's a nail, so you've made some progress, and sometimes it's not. But I think that's the way it goes. So yeah, I think you should give yourself quite a lot of credit for where you are right now, because it's like it's an exciting part of your journey.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Thank you.
And then where was I going on the other thread? I was talking
for you, like
for Story Stream and my own set. Yeah, so I think it's always much easier to look backwards and then to see it more clearly, and but there's probably some post rationalization in there as well. But I think. So going back to what I described earlier, like that first business, it's a creative digital agency, very simple business. And what I didn't realize is that there was a very strong, clear sense of purpose driving what we did. And we were pretty nailed onto it because we cared about it. It was like we were there because of the stuff that we cared about, and it married up with our customers and what they wanted. So it was a very simple equation, and it just kind of worked. And it was great, brilliant. Like that's lovely. But I got to a point where it started to feel a bit, that idea of dancing on the edge of your comfort zone. Like, I wasn't dancing anymore. Like, I was it was just like, it was fine. It was great. It was just all a bit too comfortable. It was a bit like, what's next? What do we do now? And I went on a bit of a journey of discovery at that time. And I learned some interesting stuff on that journey. And one of the things I think I learned the importance of purpose in business at that point, actually, because I was pulling all sorts of things apart and kind of trying to understand things.
So I think still quite early on though in your journey.
But I think this was probably a couple of years before. So I've had lots and lots of different businesses all over the place, but the two notable ones. The first one, Byte Studio, which was this creative digital agency. That was a bootstrap business, very simple, boutique. We did great work, found us like lovely. Service-based business, definitely business on the hard load looking back. You're only as good as your last project. You've got to have great people around you. We had very good technical people, very good designers and creative people, and actually their brains work in the opposite way. So trying to get the collaboration to work right is hard. But we did that well because we were united on this idea that whatever part of the equation you're working in, you're doing it for the customer. So what's the customer need? And then we were really into user experience, we were into psychology, we were into like all these other disciplines that bring those two other things together. That was our purpose. Our purpose was like, we delight the customer through great technology and great user experience in digital spaces. And that, I really care about that. I still really care about that now. That was what was driving us, right? So we had it, and it was there from the beginning, and we kept hold of it, and definitely became like a part of our compass of how we decided what we would do and what we wouldn't do and stuff, and that was fine. We then, long story short, ended up going across the story stream, like starting this other business, and very different type of business, B2B SaaS, like global market in the marketing space. So basically, it's a technology product that is sold to big brands around the world, and once they adopt it and once it's used and it creates value for them, like they keep going with it, and they probably want more in other parts of their literal like territories. And so totally different experience. We raised VC money, totally different, learned loads of stuff. Again, right at the beginning, very, very clear sense of purpose around what this was. So the uniting factor was like, marketing's just got really contrived. It's about trying to force people to do things they don't want to do. So if we can try and find real content from real people, and we can change the marketing so that it presents more of that, then people can make more informed decisions, and we can feel better about the role we play in marketing. And again, still desperately believe in that. I think it's really important. So that purpose drove us, and that was great. But I think I got to a point, and again, it's interesting on where we were talking about the gut saying something, and my gut was saying to me, I had other things to prove at a personal level. One of the things I had to prove was like, I want to be able to build a business where I don't need to be here. I can know it's possible. I definitely in previous businesses got caught. I'm single point of failure. If I'm not here, this thing breaks down. And that's ego driven. There's a lot of hard work to work that out, that equation. I can tell you, honestly, it's really, really tough. But as much as I could, I was very much trying to solve that problem in myself as well. I wanted to try and prove, can I build a business where I don't have to be here? Can it be global? Can it make money where I sleep? Like all these different things. And it was like, it's going to sound like tick, tick, tick. It was all very easy. It wasn't. And actually, as I look back, the ticks are a moment in time. Then you're never really there. The journey it changes and it evolves. But anyway, I got to a point where I was like, I don't need to be here. I think as much as I can put ticks in those boxes, I put ticks in those boxes. I don't know what I'm trying to prove now. Like if I'm here, it's cool, it's great, but I'm not dancing on the edge of my comfort zone being here now. Like the world's big, there's loads of other things to do. And all of these people that I've enabled and supported in doing other things, they're flying. Like I can just get out of the way. And it took a bit of work to figure that out. And then I eventually was on the other side. And I think I had to really rethink, what's my purpose going now? Because our purpose does get tied up into that purpose of the thing we do for work, for sure. So I think it took a bit of time to kind of work that one through and to figure that out. But I think for me, and it's the same for you, Sam, I think the meta purpose, which again goes all the way back to the I think it's always been there. I think I'm wired to. I want to solve great problems with great people, but I want to try and make the world better. And I love great businesses that create really cool value for people, that where it makes things better for people. That's the shit I care about. So like, I just want to do loads of that, and I don't have to do that in one business. I can do it in multiple businesses, because I can play the kind of role I play now. And actually, I think that for me, where I am right now, that's a better equation in terms of the purpose that drives me, because I get that who said, it was Archimedes, like, give me a lever long enough and I can move the world. It's the same thing. Like, if I can work across a number of businesses with the right kinds of people, and I can be part of an enabler to what their success is, and it is very much air quotes, then I feel great, because I feel as though I've done my bit in my little corner of the world, going back to the thing we talked about before. But the butterfly effect and the impact of the scale of some of these businesses, like, that's phenomenal. And I can't do that if I'm locked into one. So it's been really liberating. And again, similar to you, I don't think that the underlying purpose has actually changed. Like, what I'm here to do, designed to do, I think I've got older, I'm a bit grayer, but I'm just able to apply that in a slightly different direction, and that feels right.
It seems to me like, just getting the more I get to know you and the more we have these wonderful conversations, that I could speak to you for hours, and I love it. I just find it fascinating. It seems to me actually that, and I know you've been on a journey with it and you've asked, but a couple of things. One, that you're brave enough, and you have been for quite some time, to ask yourself those questions that a lot of us avoid. I think a lot of people avoid the difficult questions, but you're obviously naturally curious, and but I think, and I guess I've got to that point myself, I think, where I'm naturally curious, hence why I host a podcast, but I'm curious. I've become really curious about myself, and I think I'm back. I know we've come right full circle, the whole conversation, but back to that next generation, right? How we really impact this world is we encourage that so much in kids, right? To be curious, not just about the world, but about themselves and what really makes them tick. Because if we can do that, if the biggest regret of the die is I've not lived a life true to myself, and we can encourage more people to do, hopefully, the paths that we find ourselves on, where we're living in alignment with values, right? And I'll get up every day and do things that light me up. If we can encourage more of that, the world's going to be a better place, right?
I'm certain of it. Yeah. And then I think curiosity is a really important ingredient. I think we should all be curious, and maybe there's more that we can do to support other people in helping them to be curious. I think that's probably an interesting area to look at. But then in terms of the bravery, I see it in you, so I recognize it. And when I think about my version of bravery, I don't really see it as bravery in the same way that you maybe don't see yours as bravery. But I think the only reason for that is because it's lots of steps. I think it's practice. I think that's a better way. And then it's interesting, isn't it? Because I don't know that you use the word practice with work, but you do use the word practice with play.
Yeah.
And so again, it's like, well, maybe it's because this stuff to me is more playful, that means that I can sort of see it through the lens of practice. It doesn't really matter if I fail. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like, okay, well, we don't do that thing, we do that thing instead. Like, I've kind of grown and I've built muscle around that, and I think it's an important muscle to build. I think that because you build a lot of resilience, and I think it doesn't just exist in the context of business, as we said, like what is work and what is play. I think these things transcend. So the more I think about it, the more I think, especially with what's coming and the AI and the speed of technological change and all the stuff that's going on in the world right now. One of the things I keep coming back to is I think that we need the qualities of entrepreneurship in human beings more than we've ever needed it, because I think that the qualities that we've sort of touched on are the things that enable people to thrive in an environment where everything else is changing very quickly, and the things that you thought were table stakes are now not table stakes, and we're going to get more and more and more of that, as you know. So I think a lot about, I think we need to nurture this quality of entrepreneurship in people. I really do.
Do you think everyone's got the ability to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I think, again, we could get we can get a bit stuck on the words, but I think that some of the qualities that are there, I think, are things that can be practiced, and I think that they're things that can be developed. And I think I'd argue that they probably have to be developed.
What quality? What would you say, like, if you could identify, especially I guess some of the founders that you've worked with, and you as a founder yourself and your journey, what if you had to highlight specific qualities within someone to the entrepreneur?
So I think probably the first one, we said it earlier, was this, like an ultimate belief that we can change anything. With enough time, we'll get it done, we can change anything. So I think like a deep-seated belief that that there's that meme of you are and not a main character. What's that? The thing I'm talking about, non-player character. Yeah. So NPC. So like this was like a kind of meme for the generation below us for a little while. Things probably phased out now. But this idea of like you're an NPC, what does that mean? It means that you're not high agency. You're not. The world is happening to you rather than you happening to the world. So it's interesting that they've come up with their own sort of label for as a recognition of like a quality that we're speaking to, that they see as important. So there's hope that maybe they've self-selected it. So I think that's thing number one, is like we can change anything, we can do stuff. And then I think that the probably the next thing that goes hand in hand with it is I don't have to have all of the answers in order to get the thing done. I need to just feel confident that the people around me and the way I collaborate, the way I communicate, the skills that we've got collectively and the tools and the resources that we've got, that we can put them together as a jigsaw puzzle, and we can get enough of a picture out the other side. I think there's some beliefs, and I do think it starts with beliefs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've really, and it landed so much from it. Like a couple of things that really landed. Like one, that we believe that we can change something, and we create whatever that is in our mind. The second point, and actually back to the forum you mentioned as well as what you just highlighted there about the and I've recognised this more than I think I've spent a long time. Although I've built networks and I've built a community and stuff like that, I don't think I utilised them or tapped into it as much as I have in the last year. And what changed for me the last year was actually surrounding myself with all these great people that I haven't built this incredible network of people. And actually I stood there for the first time last year going, I'm going to get to the end and I'm going to look back and things are going to look different, because where I am today was shit. And I was like, I'm looking back at, this was 2024, December, looking back, I don't want to be here again. When I get to there, what I've done was put my hand up and go, I need some help. Can people help me? And lots of people went, like, yeah, we've got you, no problem. Do this strategy day here, do this over here. And there's no, and then I said to you today, like, yeah, all right, things financially haven't moved in, but it's almost irrelevant for me at the minute, because where I'm in my headspace right now is a million miles away from where I was last year. And that's because I've surrounded myself with great people who are much better at me at doing certain things and can go and have just got me to lift my head up and open my eyes and see things in a different light. And that is a gift, I guess, gift of help from those people and surrounding yourself. And I think highlighting your point, and back to like you said about that forum, just being around great people to help us that mission, I guess, and we can all create that. We've all got an ability to create that, right? Because we can highlight traits of an entrepreneur, of Richard Branson, of Stephen Buck, those type of people who are maybe in that top echelon of it, but actually all of them have got great people around them as well, and none of them have done it completely on their own, right? So we can all surround ourselves with really good people. And if we've got a mission and a purpose and a desire to make a change or do something, then and you get the people around you, we can, maybe you're right, we can all, Simon Squibb, for example, someone is trying to encourage that we can all achieve that, right?
I think he's right. I'm just going to layer up one thing on what you said, that I think there's a good hack here. I think, so again, in particular in British culture, we're almost, the idea of asking for help is, don't do that, do you? We don't do that. Don't ask for help. But again, I mentioned him earlier that Steve Jobs apparently was notorious for he would pick up the phone. I think as a young kid, picked up the phone to I think it was Michael Dell or somebody, you know, but like some real hotshot, successful guy picked up the phone and asked for help. Like, I'm looking at this thing, I'm studying this thing. Could I come in? Could you tell me about how you're doing this thing with this particular board? Because I'm really interested. And what he says is like, again, and I know this, you know this at a psychological level now, that if you ask somebody for help and you are really genuine about, no, I don't want anything else from you. I just want some help in this direction. And it's a very honest ask for help, and it's very focused on you. Don't ask a group, ask an individual. Actually, the innate response from you is you are wired to want to help. So actually, you get as much out of the equation as I do. And again, I think that's going back to like, what are the fundamentals here? There's some beliefs that we talked about, but I think there's also some really practical things. Like, you can practice this one as well. Get good at asking for help. Ask for help. Like, if you're not doing it, ask. Like, what am I getting wrong? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I think actually what you find by doing it is that you have much better conversations with people, and you build much better connections, and people start doing it back to you, and everything gets much richer for it as well.
Mate, we're coming towards the end, right? What? I literally could sit and talk to you for hours, and you know, we're doing a part 2, right? But what have we not discussed today that you wish we had of? Is there a question that I could have asked you today?
I think we've skirted the edges of what's the future of education. I think we've sort of loosely gone somewhere towards the power structures in the world, you know, politics, governments, AI. Like, I think maybe we're all having those conversations, aren't we? Things feel very unsettled. There's a lot going on. It's really hard to get your head around it. And it's very hard to ignore it. I'm not sure we should ignore it. What are the answer to these things? I think I've got a very simple answer, which is the one I shared with you. And I think until I get to better answers, this is the one I'm working with, which is like, do the best thing you can at a very local level. And don't tell yourself that because it's all so complicated and because it's just little you can't do anything. Like, just do the best thing you can with the people around you. You know, like, I think that's a great tactic. I think we should, if we haven't got anything bad, do that. But I think there is a better meta question we've had before, which is, why is it Trump? Why, like, take Trump out of the equation. Like, he's a name, right? But it doesn't have to be those people, and maybe it shouldn't be those people. Like, maybe the people that are making these decisions have gone on their own pathway where their belief systems and what they are, you know, what I said earlier of that kind of typical founder journey, when they've got to a point where they're on the treadmill now. It's like, you've got to keep this machine going, and it's hard and it's stressful. I think there's a load of people in all sorts of positions of power where they won't tell you this because they won't know it themselves, but that's happened to them as well. And actually, they're not loving it. They're not getting what they need out of it. And no one else is winning. How do we fix that? Like, we do need to fix some of those things, and we need to get some good answers, and we need to be really, really brave and really bold around how we approach some of those things. We haven't quite scratched that one, so I think that's one for us to come back to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd love a couple of things there. I guess, like, there's something I'd love people to leave with, I guess, is that imagine if we all come into the world going, what can I do on a local level to make a little bit of an impact? And you just drop that little thing in the river, and what does that ripple? If everyone looked at the world in that way, what happens? What ripples do we create? What change can we really make? Just leaving people, that would be something really interesting. I guess then the one thing I'd love to just ask before we do the storytelling cards, if me and you get empowered tomorrow, we can change the education system. We help with a view to helping them. What's the first thing we do?
So I think probably it would be really radical, but we throw away the idea of having scorecards. We're not going to have grades, GCSEs, all that sort of stuff. It's rubbish. We'll build the manual, and the manual will be the thing that goes with you, that better describes your capabilities and dials you into your capabilities. Let's do that as a first thing. And I think the other thing, which is probably more of like a tactical counterbalance to the problems that have come before, is that we give the most personalised, the best education that we can find to the parts of society that are least likely to get it in today's model. So we course correct, because everybody else will be all right. But the people that are so sort of deprived in every sense, when you bring them up when we start to average things out, and then when we get a different kind of diversity of thought in the equation.
I'm going to start and do that. Shoot. I love it. Well, if you got to the end of 2026, what would you be doing? And you look back, what would a successful year look like to you?
The first thing that comes to mind is, at a very personal level, is that we figure out a way to find a rhythm and a pattern with the kids in school that works where it's humming. And there's loads of threads which we haven't touched on, which probably need to expand on to colour that. But I think, if I didn't say that, I think I'd be hiding something. I think that's the thing that comes right into focus when you ask that question. And then the next thing is probably like, I think it's easy to fall into things because they're there, and to not be more deliberate about where you put your time and attention. So I think for me, looking back and going, yeah, they were the right people, the right companies. I spent my time in the right places, focusing on the right things. I think it's that. What is it for you?
Good question. I think last year was such a big shift for me. I can honestly sit here today and look back at last year and go, I set out and I've done what I wanted in relation to making some big changes. I made some big changes last year. I think this year, the difference is I'm so crystal clear on the clarity and the mission and the purpose that I want to look in December and go, I've stuck to that and I've moved that needle a little bit. I'd like to think I've moved that needle. I feel like I've got, everything seems to be falling into place. I'd love to just sit back there and go, I've moved that needle a little bit. And one of the things I've really recognised, and I heard on that podcast with Chris Williams and Steve Butler, he said to pick things up, got to put things down. For the first time, I think, in my business career, the podcast called Different Hats, because all I'd done was pick up another hat. I can do this now, and I'll do this now. But the first time I've gone, putting that down, put that down, put that down. I've probably put a lot down, not picking as many things up, but I've picked the one thing up, and I've got the one hat that I feel that aligns completely here. And I'm not looking for shardy objects anymore. I'm clear, and I think if I can stick to that mission and purpose with the crystal clear clarity I sit with today, that would be a good thing.
What a great answer. I think you're doing it.
It feels liberating, and easy is not the word. It's definitely not easy. The journey is going to be a journey, but I'm in it. I'll say it with Sam Garrity, who sold Rocket Mill. Incredible individual, and I loved his thing. He said when he started Rocket Mill, him and Ben and his wife as well, Alex, and they sat there and they went, what are we doing here? Are we building a bit, or are we all in, or are we just building it where we're going to go and maybe play golf on a Friday? But all in. And I responded to him over the thing. Christmas, he said, I'm starting this year and I'm so clear on where I'm going, but I'm all in. And that feels a good place to be.
Good.
So whatever, we'll see what happens. But we have a closing tradition on this podcast.
Go on.
So you're going to come to one of our top table lunches. This is our storytelling cards, right? So choose a card, any card, and then pass it back to me.
It'll be the last one, isn't it?
Oh. If I let it right. What's the most important lesson a relationship has taught you?
I think the relationship I thought about was a relationship with my dad. And what I thought about is that I know that there was a point in my world where what I needed was somebody to show up who only cared about, who was encouraging and dialing into my innate curiosity and needs. You know, that thing we talked about before, that quality that we talked about. And I didn't know he was doing it at the time, because I just took it as, you know, you think the world revolves around you. And now when I look back, I recognize what it took for him to be that person. And I'm trying to embody that these days. I think that's the thing I've recognized is, like, I think there are times in relationships where it's not just a case of putting the other person first. It's about, like, consciously being the enabler in a way where you're so in service of the other person that you are indirectly, like, being the catalyst of change that they need, just by being there and being interested and playing a ridiculously supporting role. I think there is just such beauty in that.
I love that. Is that something that you're as well trying to impart with your children? Is that something that you want them and them to get those behaviours from you? Amazing. Like, well, beautiful. Honestly, thank you for so many things, really. I think one, just one coming into my life, really, and that fact that we've met, and I think honestly, as we grow and develop as individuals, I think you meet people along that have such an impact on you, and I've been so fortunate recently to have met some people, and you're one of them. So I just, every time I'm just excited about having a conversation with you. Do you know what I mean? To just explore and be curious with each other and more that goes. And that's been beautiful. It really has over the last year or so. I'm grateful. I'm hoping that we get to spend more time together in 2026, because it's and have more of these conversations. We'll record another one as well, because this is.
Thank you, mate. I feel exactly the same way. I feel like, you know, I think there's times in life where you find your people, don't you? And you're just like, it's things that otherwise should be hard are just much easier. But it's always been like that. And I love that. And I love the depth of conversation that we're able to get to and explore. And you know, that thing we said earlier of, like, I think we need to surround ourselves with people that are that, like, it's kind of the collective brain. And I feel like there's some of that here in this context, but I feel like we have it in other contexts, and then there's an extended network, and it's just a beautiful thing to see. It's great.
Right, amazing. Well, look, thank you so much. It's been a brilliant conversation, as it would be, and I'm glad we got to capture it on camera this time, and can't wait to share it. So, mate, thank you. And that, as they say,
It's a wrap.
is a wrap.
Thanks, mate.